Deep stone structures scattered across forgotten hills, valleys, and rocky ridges often turn out to be fragments of a vast and almost incomprehensible system created by vanished ancient masters. Their passages, voids, altars, and strange resonators seem to reflect a logic that modern science is only trying to grasp. Each of these forms bears traces of a different tradition, where stone served as a conduit for meaning, power, and secret knowledge. Vogelstone Gate. The Vogelstone Gate is one of the most enigmatic structures on the entire plateau, rising amidst fractured rock ridges, as if serving as an entrance to a long-vanished world. The first impression the gate makes is its scale. Two massive pylons, each about 10 meters high and carved from solid stone, form a rectangular opening, surprisingly smooth and precise. It seems as if the craftsman who created it possessed the difficult skill of shaping the rock so that it retains its perfect geometry and remains unbroken, despite the weight and age of the material. However, where such knowledge could have come from in this secluded region remains a matter of debate. The gate structure consists of three main elements: two pylons and an upper lintel. The pylons are carved from a single block, with the lines of their side faces parallel to a precision difficult to imagine with handcrafting. The lintel is a monolithic block, lying so perfectly atop the pylons that it appears to have been installed by a mechanical lift. However, no traces of any tools have been found around the gate. No debris has been found that would suggest how the craftsman achieved such high technical standards. There are no traces of trees used for levers or supports, nor any remains of building material. This creates the impression that the gate appeared suddenly, as a natural element of the landscape, yet completely alien to nature. Even more mysterious is its location. The Vogel's Gate stands on a small rocky outcrop overlooking a narrow valley. However, there are no signs of a road or path leading through the opening. Furthermore, beyond the gate lies only a flat stone platform, ending in a steep cliff. This raises the question: if the gate was intended as a passage, then why does it lead into nothingness? Perhaps other structures or bridges once stood nearby, now destroyed or hidden under layers of scree. However, rock analysis shows that the terrain in this area has rarely undergone significant changes. Even erosion, although noticeable, could not have completely destroyed the large-scale structures. Lines resembling ancient symbols have been discovered on the surface of the pylons. They are vertically arranged and barely visible in normal light, but become more distinct under oblique sunlight. These symbols do not resemble writing. Rather, they resemble schematic representations, possibly related to the observation of celestial cycles. Some researchers suggest that the gate may have served as a unique astronomical instrument. On certain days of the year, sunlight passes through the opening in a specific pattern, falling on the stone platform behind the gate and forming a rectangle of light that changes size and direction. Observations show that these light changes occur with remarkable regularity, suggesting a calendrical function for the structure. However, the most unusual quality of the Vogel's Gate is its acoustics. When standing in front of the opening, a slight hum can be heard, seemingly emanating from within the stone. This hum intensifies in the wind and changes pitch depending on the direction from which the wind is blowing. Analysis revealed that narrow vertical cavities exist within the pylons that resonate at specific frequencies. These cavities may have been intentionally created so that the gate would serve not only as a visual, but also as an aural instrument. Perhaps the sound had ritual significance or served as a way to draw attention to important natural phenomena observed through the opening. Another hypothesis holds that the gates may have been part of a larger signaling system. If other similar structures were nearby, the changing sound could have been heard over a considerable distance. In the ancient world, this could have been an important means of communication or warning. Some researchers also suggest that the gate opening may have served as a kind of boundary, not in a physical, but symbolic sense. Perhaps the people who lived here in ancient times considered certain areas of land sacred, and the gate was part of a rite of passage. These ideas are supported by the sensation many researchers experience when approaching the gate. The space around it seems unusually quiet, as if sounds are muffled by the air itself. This may be due to the local topography, but the effect is so noticeable that many believe it was deliberately created. The Vogel's Gate remains a mystery, combining architectural mastery, astronomical knowledge, and a keen understanding of acoustics. Its isolated location, unusual shape, and multi-layered properties suggest a purpose that is difficult to reconstruct today. Perhaps it was part of a ritual path, a tool for long-term observation, or even a symbol of a connection between worlds. Whatever the case, the gate continues to attract researchers, as if offering a glimpse into a culture that vanished long before the first written records appeared. Underground wells of Sema. The Sema underground wells are a chain of vertical shafts that extend tens of meters underground. They are located on a plateau where the surface appears solid and monolithic, but beneath it lies a complex network of ancient workings. Each well has unusually smooth walls and a perfectly rounded shape, ruling out a natural origin. Such shafts cannot be created with simple tools. The interior surfaces appear as if the rock was not extracted mechanically, but rather by an unknown process, leaving the stone structure uniform and dense. Because of this, the wells were long considered natural karst formations, but subsequent research has disproved this theory. The first thing that strikes researchers is their precise arrangement. The wells form a network, the geometry of which resembles a star map or an ancient diagram. Some shafts are connected by narrow horizontal passages, cut as precisely as the vertical cavities. In other places, there are no passages, but the wells themselves are aligned in such a way that a pattern in the distances between them can be discerned. This regularity has given rise to the hypothesis that Sema's underground wells may have been used to observe natural forces, perhaps groundwater, seismic vibrations, or even acoustic phenomena. The structures discovered on the well walls are particularly interesting. At a certain depth, thin horizontal lines, spaced at regular intervals, are visible in the stone. These lines are not cracks or tool marks. They appear as if the rock had been subjected to periodic action, as if it had been processed by pulses that left a precise rhythm. These bands continue around the entire shaft, forming a unique resonant pattern. When scientists attempted to measure the well acoustics, they discovered a surprising effect. In some places, the sound was greatly amplified, while in others, it disappeared completely. This creates the impression that the wells were tuned to specific frequencies, like giant musical instruments embedded within the earth. The depth of most shafts ranges between 20 and 40 meters, but there are also some where the bottom is invisible, even with powerful lighting. In some of them, a faint glow emanating from the depths is observed. This glow has a cool bluish hue and, according to researchers, is caused by the presence of minerals that react to changes in temperature or humidity. However, oddly, the minerals only manifest themselves in shafts where horizontal passages were discovered. Perhaps these areas served as unique underground chambers for the accumulation or distribution of moisture. The ventilation system poses a major mystery. Despite the depth, the air inside the wells is fresh and cool, with no signs of stagnation. This suggests the presence of hidden channels that supply air from outside. However, research is insufficient to determine their location. If such channels do exist, they are incredibly narrow and carefully concealed. Some researchers speculate that the ventilation system operates through natural circulation, enhanced by the well's geometry, as if ancient craftsmen exploited the properties of the earth to create a constant airflow. Round stone slabs have been discovered at the bottom of several explored shafts. They fit perfectly against the walls and rest in recesses. The slabs can be moved, revealing access to lower levels. However, these levels are poorly explored. They consist of narrow corridors leading to unknown depths. Researchers note that sound behaves differently below. Even footsteps are barely audible, as if the stone dampens vibrations. This property has given rise to many legends. Locals believe the Sema wells were throats of earth through which ancient priests listened to the underworld. They believed that voices could be heard within the shafts, predicting future events. Legends say the light in the depths is not minerals, but a reflection of a lower fire that flared up when a person approached. Of course, there is no scientific evidence to support this, but the phenomenon of the bluish glow remains unexplained. It is hypothesized that the Sema wells were part of a water collection system. However, the depth and shape of the shafts are inconsistent with such a function. Furthermore, traces of water have been found only in isolated locations, and they are not connected to surface sources. Some scholars believe that ancient craftsmen may have used the wells to study the behavior of groundwater as a kind of observation chamber. However, this leaves open the possibility that the walls are so precisely crafted. Other researchers believe the Sema was a center of ritual activity. The vertical structure, depth, acoustic effects, and illumination create the impression that the space was intended not for practical purposes, but to influence the consciousness of ritual participants. Perhaps people descended into the wells to experience a state of silence, sound resonance, or psychological transition. Whatever the true function of Sema's underground wells, they represent a unique example of ancient engineering, combining geometry, acoustics, and the mysterious properties of stone. Their purpose remains unclear, but one thing is clear: these deep structures were created for purposes beyond conventional construction. Temple niches of Candia. The Candia temple niches are a remarkable complex of recesses carved into a massive rock face, located at the edge of an ancient sanctuary. At first glance, these niches appear to be ordinary openings, but upon closer examination, it becomes clear that each one has its own unique shape, acoustics, and orientation. They are cut so precisely that they create the impression of the use of precision tools or gentle stone-breaking techniques, traces of which have not been found. Externally, the niches are arranged in a strict order, forming several horizontal rows running along the entire rock wall. This arrangement evokes associations with a library, not a written one, but an auditory or spiritual one. The niches vary in size, but most are about 1 meter high and 60 to 90 centimeters deep. The interior surfaces are carefully polished, and the entrance edges are slightly rounded. This creates a sense of a smooth transition between the outside world and the interior of the niche. Some researchers believe these shapes may have been intentional to improve the acoustic properties of the recesses. Indeed, the slightest sound creates a slight echo inside the niche, which is either amplified or muted depending on the position of the sound source. Interestingly, the niches are not oriented uniformly. Each is angled slightly differently, so the direction of their internal axis is always offset. This suggests that the niches were tuned to detect specific sounds or vibrations. They may have served as a tool for listening to the wind, the earth, or even low-frequency vibrations occurring deep within the mountain. If this theory is correct, the Candia temple niches could have served as an ancient seismograph or resonance system, capturing subtle natural signals. However, most researchers favor a ritualistic interpretation. The niches are located in an area that once served as a cult center. Traces of ancient rituals were discovered on a stone platform in front of the cliff. Some niches contain traces of mineral deposits, which could have been the result of burning oils or incense. This suggests that the niches were used as light or fire points, a kind of small altar where each fire had its own significance. There's also a theory that the niches served as places for ritual figurines or symbols. However, archaeological finds are minimal, and no figurines have been discovered in the immediate vicinity. Furthermore, materials like wood or fabric may simply not have survived. More importantly, many niches are located too high to serve as convenient places for objects. This suggests that the niches may have served symbolic or auditory rather than physical functions. The resonant properties of some niches are particularly noteworthy. In one of them, a phenomenon called the singing stone was discovered. When a certain frequency of sound was directed into the niche, it began to emit a prolonged, vibrating sound, reminiscent of an ancient musical instrument. In another niche, the sound, on the contrary, disappeared completely, as if the stone itself had absorbed it. This diversity of acoustic effects seems no coincidence. Perhaps each niche was tuned to a specific tone, and together they formed a kind of temple orchestra. If so, the rituals performed here may have involved the use of the human voice or musical instruments interacting with the niches. Other researchers believe the niches may have been used in meditative practices. By entering a niche or bringing one's head close to it, a person would be immersed in a kind of sound chamber, where external noises were distorted and internal sensations were amplified. This could have facilitated states of trance or concentration. Perhaps participants in ancient rituals passed through a series of niches, each creating its own sense of space and sound. Some niches contain barely noticeable lines on the walls, reminiscent of ancient symbols. These lines do not form text, but create geometric patterns, spirals, triangles, intersecting arcs. Perhaps this was not a language, but a way to denote the niche's function, their tone, or their relevance to a specific aspect of the ritual. In several niches, the symbols form a sequence, indicating that the complex was used in a strict order. A particular mystery is that the Candia niches are located in a section of rock that exhibits unusual thermal stability. Even with sudden changes in air temperature, the rock surface remains virtually unchanged. This may indicate the presence of internal voids or a hidden heat source. However, research has not yet identified such structures. The Candian temple niches are more than just an architectural element. They are a complex system in which stone is transformed into an instrument for interacting with sound, light, and perception. Their precision, diversity of form, and arrangement speak of a deeply conceived system of knowledge that remains largely unclear. Perhaps the niches served as intermediaries between the human world and the world of invisible forces dwelling within the depths of the stone. Cave altars of Bhimbetka. The Bhimbetka cave altars are located deep within a massive rock massif where a system of ancient grottos forms a complex labyrinth of passages, niches, and natural chambers. However, among these natural formations, structures clearly crafted by human hands stand out, possessing strict geometry and ritual symbolism. These altars are not simply stone platforms or rough projections. They are carefully leveled, smooth surfaces, often surrounded by miniature walls or bowl-like depressions. The complexity of their forms, the diversity of their functions, and their location within the cave complex make them one of the most enigmatic objects in the region. Many altars are located in areas where daylight barely penetrates. Oddly enough, it is precisely in these dark halls that the greatest number of traces of ancient activity are observed. In some places, traces of soot have been discovered on the walls and ceilings, but their nature indicates not domestic hearths, but ritual fires burning in strictly defined spots. Traces of heating are visible on the altar's surfaces, but they are not random. The heat spots are arranged as if ancient priests lit fires in strictly designated places, observing an unknown order or sequence. The altars themselves vary in shape. Some are low stone platforms, barely rising above the floor. Others are round or oval depressions, carefully carved into the stone and with a perfectly smooth bottom. Still others feature a slightly inclined surface, as if designed to allow liquids to flow. This has given rise to numerous hypotheses regarding their use. Some researchers believe the altars were used in libation rituals, where water, milk, or oils flowed down the stone surface, symbolizing human interaction with nature. Others suggest that inclined altars were used to observe reflections. Perhaps light falling on the surface of the liquid created ritual images on the walls. Altars located under the natural domes of caves are particularly noteworthy. In such places, the acoustic properties of the space amplify even the faintest sound. Speaking in a quiet voice, words are repeatedly reflected, creating a barely noticeable vibrating trail that is felt more by the body than by the ear. Some researchers believe that such altars served as places for the pronunciation of ritual formulas, where the meaning of the words was not as important as their vibrational effect on the listener. This is confirmed by the location of some altars. They stand precisely under points where the vault amplifies the sound to a resonant effect. However, the most intriguing are the altars located in halls penetrated by a narrow beam of sunlight. In some caves, it has been observed that on certain days of the year, a beam of light hits the altar's surface precisely, creating a bright spot that expands or contracts depending on the sun's angle. Such observations suggest that some altars may have been linked to calendar cycles or seasonal rituals. Some altars, according to research, are illuminated at the winter or summer solstices, making them a kind of stone marker of time. But the most astonishing phenomenon remains the light halos observed near some altars. This effect manifests as a faint glow on the walls, created when sunlight hits the altar's surface at a certain angle. Remarkably, the glow persists even after the main beam has shifted. Scientists attribute this to the presence of phosphorescent inclusions in the stone, but their number in the rock is too small to explain such a noticeable effect. Moreover, the glow appears only in certain areas that do not exhibit a high concentration of minerals. This has led to speculation that ancient craftsmen may have intentionally processed the stone, imparting unusual optical properties to it. Also noteworthy is the presence of small triangular depressions on some altars, arranged in a strict pattern around the perimeter. These depressions are too small to contain anything, but too numerous to be random defects. They may have served as markers or symbols of the ritual cycle. In other cases, the depressions form complex patterns reminiscent of schematic representations of constellations. If so, then ancient rituals may have been associated not only with the earthly elements, but also with the celestial ones. Traces resembling fine grooves have been discovered on the surface of some altars. These can form spirals, intersecting lines, or geometric shapes. Analysis shows that the grooves were carved with great precision, as if by a tool capable of cutting through the stone without damaging its structure. Some researchers believe these grooves were used to direct the flow of water or oil during rituals. However, a compelling hypothesis is that these lines played an acoustic role, directing sound vibrations across the altar's surface. Local legends, preserved in fragments, claim that the Bhimbetka caves were a place where stones spoke. Some ancient traditions mention visions appearing on the altars, emerging from fire or light. Of course, these stories may be figments of the imagination, but the strange lighting effects and unique acoustics suggest that ancient people truly could have perceived what was happening here as a miracle. Today, the cave altars of Bhimbetka are considered one of the most important pieces of evidence that ancient cultures possessed complex knowledge about human interaction with space. These altars are not simply traces of rituals, but also stone tools designed to manipulate perception, sound, light, and the cycles of nature. The Lost Circle of Silusta. The Lost Circle of Silusta is located on a remote plateau where the ground is covered with a thick layer of weathered debris and ancient dust deposits. At first glance, it is almost invisible. Only the barely discernible contours of a huge circle betray its presence. But clear the surface, and a majestic structure is revealed. A perfect stone circle over 50 meters in diameter, formed from large slabs, perfectly fitted together. These slabs are so precisely aligned that it is impossible to slide even a thin plate between them. It is as if the stone had been softened and reshaped and then hardened into a geometrically perfect structure. The surface of the circle is smooth, but not devoid of patterns. Long, straight lines are visible on it, forming a complex system of intersections. Some lines run parallel to each other, while others radiate from the central area. These patterns cannot be called art. Rather, They resemble markings, perhaps related to measurements, observations, or even the movements of celestial bodies. Within the circle are several ring-shaped depressions of varying depths, echoing the overall shape of the structure. This multi-layered construction indicates a deliberate structure created not for decoration, but to fulfill specific functions. The central part of the circle is a circular stone platform approximately 3 meters in diameter. The platform's surface is slightly raised, and the edges have a subtle slope. This creates the impression that the platform was used for observation. Standing on it, a person could see the entire circle and the surrounding horizons. Some researchers believe the platform served as a place for a ritual leader or observer, monitoring ongoing activities or astronomical phenomena. However, another theory suggests that the platform may have had an acoustic function. Under certain conditions, the voice of a person standing on it carries unusually far, as if the circle amplifies the sound, transforming it into a resonant wave. The stone slabs that form the outer contour of the circle are particularly striking. Each is the same height and thickness, but differs slightly in length. However, these differences compensate so precisely that the overall diameter of the circle remains perfect. There are no angles between the slabs. Their edges are crafted to create the illusion of a smooth, continuous ring. Viewed from above, the circle resembles an ancient instrument for measuring angles or tracking the movements of celestial bodies. This has led to the hypothesis that Salusta may have been a vast open-air astronomical observatory. This hypothesis is particularly convincing given the orientation of the lines on the circle's surface. Some of them align with the directions of sunrise and sunset on the equinoxes and solstices. Others may correspond to the appearance of bright stars or constellations in the sky that were important to the people who created this structure. If so, the Salusta Circle was part of a complex calendar, allowing for the precise determination of the seasons and the tracking of natural cycles. However, there is another, more mystical version. Numerous stone fragments were found around the circle, forming strange shapes. They are arranged as if they could have once been part of statues or totems standing along the perimeter. These elements could have symbolized patron spirits or entities addressed by ritual participants. Considering the circle's acoustic properties, it can be assumed that it was the site of ritual dances, chants, or meditations, in which sound played a key role. No less mysterious are the underground chambers discovered beneath the circle. Radar surveys revealed several irregularly shaped chambers, located at a depth of 2 to 3 meters. These chambers have no entrances, and their contents are unknown. They may contain stone artifacts, ritual objects, or devices related to the circle's operation. However, access to them is difficult, as any attempt to break through the surface could destroy the structure. One of the most unusual features of the circle is its luminous phenomena. Researchers note that at dusk, the circle's surface seems to glow with a faint silvery hue. This effect is especially noticeable after rain or in humid air. It is believed that this is due to the minerals contained within the stone, but analysis shows that the content of luminous elements is too small to produce such an effect. Another hypothesis is that the glow is caused by a special surface treatment that gives it the ability to reflect and amplify weak light sources. Local legends say that the Salusta Circle was a place where the earth spoke to the heavens. According to legend, on certain nights, dancing shadows could be seen above the circle, moving without a visible light source. These phenomena may have been the result of natural factors, but their descriptions are too consistent in oral tradition to be considered mere inventions. Today, the Lost Circle of Salusta is considered one of the most complex ancient architectural structures, combining astronomical, acoustic, and ritual functions. It may have been the center of spiritual life for the ancient people, a tool for observing the sky, or a site for significant rituals. Whatever the case, the circle remains unique evidence that ancient civilizations perceived space and stone not only as matter, but also as a means of communicating with the world. Rock corridors of Pturis. The Paturas rock corridors are a network of long passages carved into monolithic rock masses at considerable depths. Their scale and structure are astonishing. The corridors stretch for hundreds of meters, sometimes ascending gentle slopes, sometimes disappearing into steep descending tunnels, as if part of a gigantic underground mechanism. The walls of the corridors are so smooth that it seems as if the stone was not cut but pressed, changing its shape without destroying its structure. Even at the turns, the surfaces remain smooth, something completely impossible for primitive technology. Most of Paturas's corridors have a distinctive shape. They widen slightly at the bottom and taper toward the top, forming a trapezoidal profile. This is no coincidence. This shape contributes to unique acoustic properties. In some corridors, a whisper spoken at one end can be clearly heard at the other, even over 100 meters away. In others, sound is instantly absorbed by the walls, as if stone absorbs vibrations. This noticeable difference makes each corridor unique, as if tuned to a specific frequency or performing a distinct function within the system. Particularly striking are the places where the corridors intersect. At these points, large halls form, with several passages radiating from them. These halls are shaped like irregular polygons, but the angles of their walls are perfect. The center of each hall is slightly depressed, and subtle circular patterns are visible on the floor, suggesting that the halls were used for rituals or observation. In some halls, vertical cracks in the walls were discovered, leading to an unknown depth. These may have served as ventilation shafts or acoustic channels, distributing sound throughout the system. The stone that makes up the corridors contains unusual mineral inclusions. When illuminated, they create a faint shimmer, as if the space were vibrating slightly. This is only visible at a certain angle, making this effect rare and mysterious. Some scientists believe the shimmer is due to the presence of crystals capable of reflecting light in multiple directions. Others see it as evidence of the stone being processed using unknown methods capable of altering its structure at the microscopic level. The arrangement of the corridors is no less astonishing. They don't follow natural cracks in the rock. Instead, they often intersect them at right angles, requiring incredible strength and precision. It seems as if Paturas's creators aim to bend the rock rather than adapt to it. Some researchers speculate that the corridors were part of a massive complex designed to monitor underground processes, acoustic, geothermal, or even seismic. However, no mechanisms or instruments have been found inside. The so-called transitional walls present a particular mystery. These are areas where the corridor surface gradually changes color and texture, as if transitioning from one mineral to another. Analysis shows that the stone composition in these areas is virtually identical to the surrounding massif. However, the visual effect remains, as if the creators wanted to delineate the boundaries between parts of the complex. Sometimes the transitional walls are accompanied by barely discernible symbols, lines, dots, arcs. They are so faint that they can only be seen under oblique lighting. Perhaps these served as directional signs or markings for the functions of specific corridors. No less intriguing is the lighting system. Despite the depth, in some places along the corridors, there are areas where the walls reflect light much more brightly than expected. This creates the effect of luminous pockets, where the space appears illuminated from within. Perhaps the stone in these areas has a special composition. However, another theory is that the light here spreads by wave reflection, creating the effect of an internal glow. Such areas could have been used as landmarks or ritual sites. Some corridors in Paturas end abruptly in a smooth wall without the slightest trace of unfinished work. These walls are distinct from the others. Their surface is perfectly smooth and the stone appears slightly lighter. They may conceal entrances to undiscovered chambers or passages sealed by ancient craftsmen. Researchers have repeatedly attempted to scan these areas, but the signal bounces back chaotically, as if the space beyond is hidden from outside influence. There's also a mystical interpretation of the origin of the Paturus corridors. Local legends claim that the complex was created not by humans, but by ancient stone guardians who knew how to sing to the rock, causing it to open and take the desired shape. The corridors, they say, were pathways for spirits moving through the underworld, connecting various places of power. Of course, these are just legends, but their imagery resonates remarkably with the complex's acoustic properties. Modern researchers acknowledge that the corridors of Turris represent a unique combination of architecture, acoustics, and striking geometry. They demonstrate a profound understanding of the properties of stone and space, which remains a mystery to this day. Perhaps the complex was part of an ancient route leading to centers of ritual activity. Or perhaps it was an underground laboratory where the forces hidden deep within the earth were studied. Whatever the case, Paturus remains one of the most impressive underground mysteries of antiquity. Stone chambers of Bactra. The stone chambers of Bactra are one of the most enigmatic underground architectural complexes known to researchers. They are located in a dark stone massif that appears solid and uniform on the surface, but conceals a network of chambers so meticulously carved that the boundaries between natural rock and artificial creation are almost indistinguishable. The chambers vary in size, from small rooms a few meters wide to enormous halls capable of accommodating hundreds of people. But their most important feature is their perfect symmetry and interconnectedness, testifying to a highly complex design. The walls of the chambers are polished to a mirror shine, preserving the natural texture of the stone. This creates a deep half-tone effect, where a dim light source is reflected by numerous points, filling the room with a soft glow. No tool marks were found on any of the walls. There are no scratches, chips, or signs of grinding. It seems as if the stone itself took the desired shape under the influence of a force that altered its internal structure. Some researchers suggest the use of heat or vibration to soften the rock without destroying it. However, no modern experiment has been able to replicate this effect. One of the chamber's key features is their acoustic behavior. Each room has a unique resonance. In some, sound reverberates with incredible clarity. Even the softest clap of hands creates a complex, multi-layered response that overlaps itself. In others, the sound, conversely, seems to dissolve, leaving not even an echo. This diversity testifies to deliberate design. The ancient masters clearly understood the nature of sound in enclosed spaces and could manipulate it with astonishing precision. In the center of several large chambers are circular depressions resembling bowls. These depressions have perfectly smooth edges and uniform depth. Their placement is strictly symmetrical relative to the walls. They may have served as places for ritual vessels or tools. However, there is also a hypothesis that these depressions were part of an acoustic system. Speaking over them produces a strange metallic tint, as if reflected not only by the walls, but also by the internal structure of the stone. This is reminiscent of the phenomenon where vibration is amplified in a resonator, tuning the room to a specific frequency. But the most astonishing feature of the chambers is their orientation. Each is positioned at a unique angle, corresponding to specific magnetic field lines. The alignment is so precise that it can hardly be considered random. Researchers speculate that ancient architects may have utilized natural magnetic anomalies, considering them as part of their architectural design. They may have believed that certain directions enhanced or weakened energy flows, and constructed the chambers in such a way that the space within became alive, interacting with the surrounding world. Faint geometric patterns, circles, intersecting circles, and arcs, almost obscured but visible under oblique lighting, can be detected on the floors of some chambers. These patterns do not resemble decorative elements. They resemble flow diagrams, perhaps depicting the path of light, sound, or energy within the chamber. Some researchers believe the Bactra chambers may have been used as teaching spaces, where students from ancient schools studied the properties of space and the interaction of humans with stone. If so, the complex was not simply a ritual center, but also a unique laboratory. Another mystery is the hidden cracks in the walls. These cracks are narrow and almost invisible, but if you put your hand near them, you can feel the air move. This suggests that there are voids or corridors behind the walls unknown to researchers. Their arrangement is too complex to be random. Perhaps the complex has several levels, hidden from view. Some cracks emit strange sounds in the wind, slight vibrations reminiscent of a quiet hum. Because of this, locals believe the chambers are alive and attribute consciousness to them. An anomaly was discovered in one of the deepest chambers, a section of the wall that reflects light excessively brightly, creating a glowing effect. The stone there appears smooth, but analysis shows that its structure is identical to the surrounding rock. Nevertheless, light is retained on its surface, forming a silvery haze. This glow intensifies when touched, or when the air humidity increases. It's possible that the stone in this area has a specific crystalline orientation that alters the angle of light reflection. However, a definitive explanation is still lacking. The legends surrounding the Bactra chambers are particularly fascinating. Locals speak of voice halls where answers to questions can be heard, not from people, but from the stone itself. Travelers who spent the night in the chambers sometimes reported strange sounds, as if light footsteps or whispers emanated from the void. This could, of course, be the result of complex acoustics, but coincidences are all too common. According to legend, the chambers were used by ancient sages to communicate with the powers of the earth, and the chambers themselves were considered living beings preserving the memories of the past. Researchers note another important detail: the absence of obvious entrances. Some chambers are connected by narrow passages, but the complex itself is inaccessible from the surface by conventional means. The entrances were discovered by accident. Part of a corridor collapsed, revealing access inside. This raises the question: were the entrances originally external, or was the complex intended for those with knowledge of secret paths? If the latter, the chambers could have been sites of secret rituals or a repository of knowledge. Modern science cannot yet explain many phenomena associated with the Bactra chambers. Their perfect symmetry, acoustic properties, alignment with magnetic lines, and the absence of tool marks all indicate a high level of knowledge. Perhaps the complex was the center of an ancient school where the properties of space were studied. Or perhaps it was a ritual site designed for communication with forces considered sacred by the ancients. Whatever the case, the stone chambers of Bactra continue to amaze, forcing us to reconsider our understanding of the capabilities of ancient civilizations. Tunnels under Olbia? The tunnels beneath Olbia represent one of the most difficult underground structures to study, as the network of passages extends so deeply that even modern mapping methods yield only fragmentary images. These tunnels were discovered by chance. During excavations on one of the ancient terraces, the ground suddenly collapsed, revealing a corridor carved into solid rock. Initial studies revealed that the tunnels are a system of branching passages connected by halls, vertical shafts, and in some places, stepped passages leading to lower levels. The tunnel's main feature is their incredible evenness and precision. The walls are smooth, without any traces of impacts or chisels. The corners between the ceiling and walls are rounded, creating a sense of a seamless transition. Moreover, the corridors are uniform in width, over tens of meters. These qualities indicate the use of a unique stone processing method that softened the rock surface rather than destroyed it. Some scientists have proposed theories about thermal effects or vibration cutting, but neither hypothesis has yet been confirmed. The tunnel ceilings are no less mysterious. They are slightly curved, forming gentle arches, allowing the passages to remain stable, even at depths where rock pressure would otherwise cause deformation. These arches create astonishing acoustic effects. Footsteps taken at one end of the tunnel are heard distorted at the other, as if the sound were passing through a filter. Sometimes the sound disappears completely, while at other times, on the contrary, it amplifies, creating a strange, multi-layered echo. This suggests that the tunnels were designed with acoustic properties in mind. The halls accessed by the tunnels are even more mysterious. Some are symmetrical, resembling a regular polygon, though creating such shapes within monolithic rock seems impossible with primitive tools. Ring-shaped depressions, resembling the marks of massive stone slabs, have been discovered on the floors of some halls. These slabs may have been used as covers for hidden wells, shafts, or storage facilities. However, attempts to examine these depressions have so far been unsuccessful. The rock beneath them is too dense to determine its structure using conventional methods. The researchers were particularly drawn to the vertical shafts, narrow, deep openings leading to the lower levels. They are so smooth that they appear to have been carved by a giant pipe or cylindrical tool. Descending into these shafts is extremely difficult due to the lack of supports. The walls are devoid of any notches or protrusions, suggesting a deliberate attempt to avoid leaving any traces of construction. Most intriguingly, however, the shafts are located in areas where the acoustics of the halls are most concentrated. Some researchers speculate that they were used to transmit sound or even energy between levels. Despite the lack of direct evidence, the tunnels beneath Olbia are often associated with ritual practices. In one of the halls, barely noticeable symbols, parallel lines intersecting at specific angles, were discovered on the walls. They are located too high to be random. These symbols could have denoted directions or rhythms important to ancient rituals. Local legends say that in ancient times, priests traveled through the tunnels, communicating with the underground spirit of the earth. These stories echo a strange phenomenon recorded by researchers: periodic low-frequency vibrations unrelated to the region's seismic activity. In some places, the tunnels widen, forming a kind of mirror gallery. Here, the walls reflect light as if it were gliding across the surface, undisturbed by any unevenness. The effect is so powerful that a small lamp can illuminate a significant space. However, the walls themselves don't appear polished. Their shine appears only at a certain angle, which may be due to the internal structure of the stone. It is hypothesized that ancient craftsmen may have used special minerals or technologies that altered the reflective properties of the rock. There are also more mystical phenomena. Some researchers have claimed to have observed a faint glow deep in the tunnels, emanating from corners or wall joints. This light fades when a person approaches. Perhaps this is a trick of the eye in low light or a reflection of light from crystals, but the phenomenon is too persistent to be completely ignored. The air humidity in the deep levels of the tunnels is also unusual. It remains stable despite the absence of ventilation openings. This suggests the presence of a hidden system of channels connecting the upper and lower levels. Another strange aspect is the temperature anomalies. In some sections of the tunnels, the air is significantly colder than in neighboring areas, although no air currents are observed. This creates the impression of separate, cold chambers, as if the space there is somehow separated from the rest of the system. It's possible that these zones were used to store certain substances or objects requiring low temperatures. However, no traces of their contents have been found so far. Finally, the purpose of the tunnels remains a mystery. If we consider them transport routes, the lack of signs of use, lubrication, or wear suggests a different purpose. Even the floors of the corridors are too smooth to be the result of prolonged human or material movement. If they were a ritual complex, its scale would be too large and complex. Some scholars hypothesize that the tunnels may have served as an underground calendar or a system for monitoring changes within the earth. This is supported by the association of acoustic phenomena with specific days of the year. Regardless, the tunnels beneath Olbia remain one of the most impressive pieces of evidence that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge we are only beginning to suspect. Their precision, symmetry, inexplicable architectural logic, and acoustic properties point to a complex design with no obvious parallel. Perhaps the tunnels were part of a vast underground system spanning an entire region, or even served functions related to ancient beliefs about the power of the earth. Sanctuaries of Nabesh Hill. The Nabesh Hill sanctuaries are a unique complex of stone structures located atop a hill long considered an ordinary natural formation. However, careful research has revealed that the hill conceals the remains of an ancient sacred center where the architecture, astronomy, and ritual traditions of a long-vanished people merged. Its slopes and summit are dotted with numerous niches, platforms, stone pillars, and depressions, forming a complex system seemingly subordinated to a single design. This system is striking in that it combines elements of open and subterranean architecture, placing the religious sites in different layers of the hill. The main feature of Nabesh are the circular stone platforms located at various levels of the hill. Each platform is surrounded by a low stone border and has a slightly inclined surface, oriented toward different points of the horizon. The orientation of these slopes is not random. Analysis has shown that each platform perfectly aligns with specific positions of the sun and moon on key days of the year. At the equinoxes, sunlight hits them at an angle that highlights the internal stone patterns, lines and dots barely visible in ordinary light. These features indicate that the platforms may have served as instruments for observing celestial cycles or as sites for solar rituals. The so-called stone pillars, elongated vertical slabs located along the perimeters of the platforms, also play an important role. Each pillar resembles a faceted pillar with perfectly smooth edges. Their height varies from 2 to 4 meters. Looking through one pillar to another, a precise line is formed, aligning with the direction of certain star rises. Thus, the pillars may have served as stone sights used in astronomical observations. But their arrangement also creates unique acoustic effects. Wind passing between them amplifies and modulates the sound, creating the impression of a melodic hum, as if the hill itself were emitting a voice. Beneath the hilltop lies a network of underground rooms and corridors. They are carved into the rock with astonishing precision. In some places, the walls are mirror smooth, as if polished by an unknown tool. In others, geometric reliefs resembling diagrams are visible. These symbols do not form text, but resemble signs denoting directions or energy flows. Interestingly, in some rooms, under certain lighting angles, these reliefs create a sense of movement. This may be due to the properties of the minerals that make up the rock. The Nabesh Hill sanctuaries are also renowned for their acoustic phenomena. In one of the underground chambers, a multiple whisper effect was discovered. Standing at the central point, a person can hear their own whisper, seemingly reflected from all directions. However, in another corner of the same chamber, the sound disappears completely, as if absorbed by the stone itself. Such contrasts are difficult to explain simply by the physical properties of the room. Some experts believe that ancient masters deliberately created such acoustic zones, perhaps for meditation or rituals associated with perceiving sound as a sacred phenomenon. Another mystery of Nabesh are the stone sinks, round depressions in the floors of some rooms. They resemble neither vessels nor storage spaces. Their shape resembles perfect cones, receding into the depths. The sinks create a peculiar sound effect. Speaking over them gives the voice a metallic tint, and the vibrations become perceptible. This suggests that the sinks were part of a sound system that enhanced ritual chants or created a special atmosphere in the rooms. Long stone grooves running from the summit to the base were also discovered on the hill's surface. They form a bizarre network that at first glance appears chaotic. However, upon closer analysis, it becomes clear that the grooves are directed toward an ancient watercourse, now dry. They may have been used for water-related rituals or to collect rainwater. However, their smoothness and precision indicate that they were not a natural creation. The stone within the grooves is worked as if ancient craftsmen were attempting to direct the water along a strictly defined path, perhaps creating patterns on the surface or producing specific sound effects as the stream passed. At the top of the hill stands the so-called main sanctuary, a stone circle with a central pedestal. The surface of the pedestal is covered with a complex pattern consisting of intersecting lines and arcs. This design resembles a star map, but with different scales. Perhaps the ancient priests used this pedestal as a model of the cosmos, performing rituals aimed at harmonizing the earthly and celestial realms. Interestingly, during the full moon, moonlight falls on the pedestal, highlighting parts of the pattern that would otherwise remain unnoticed. Local legends say that Nabesh Hill was a place where the sky taught the earth. Ancient sages, it is said, came here to hear the voices of the stars. These legends remarkably echo the astronomical orientations of the sanctuaries, as well as the acoustic effects created by the pillars and underground chambers. Some traditions claim that a glowing stone existed at the top of the hill and that its glow foreshadowed important events. Faint light effects are indeed observed in the sanctuaries, but their origin is linked to minerals that can reflect moonlight in unusual patterns. The Nabesh Hill sanctuaries represent a combination of astronomical precision, acoustic mastery, and profound symbolism. They demonstrate that the ancient people who lived here possessed a developed tradition encompassing celestial observation, sound manipulation, and ritual practices. Every element of the complex, from stone pillars to underground chambers, serves as part of a unified system designed to foster human interaction with nature and the cosmos. The sanctuaries remain among the most enigmatic monuments of the ancient world, continuing to amaze and inspire researchers. Granite Pillars of Shumara. The granite pillars of Shumara rise on a plateau surrounded by steep terraces and deep crevasses, as if they were the last guardians of a vanished civilization. From a distance, they resemble a disordered forest of stone columns, but upon closer inspection, it becomes clear. Their arrangement follows a complex and meticulously planned system. The pillars do not simply stand in groups, they are arranged in long rows and arcs, forming gigantic geometric figures visible only from above. Some of these figures align with the sun's direction at the solstices, while others are oriented along the trajectories of stellar sunrises. This suggests that the pillars of Shumara may have served as a grand astronomical system, similar to megaliths, but executed with greater precision and scale. Each pillar is a monolithic block of granite, ranging from 5 to 8 meters in height. Their smooth surfaces show no signs of natural weathering, which is surprising for a material exposed to wind and temperature fluctuations. Some pillars are slightly tilted, but their angle is so consistent that it appears intentional. It seems the pillar's tilt is part of a system of orientation. The granite blocks themselves are incredibly heavy, and the method of their transportation and installation remains a mystery. No traces of quarries from which such massive slabs could have been extracted have been found either in the surrounding area or on the plateau itself. The surfaces of the pillars are decorated with subtle lines inlaid into the stone. These lines form complex patterns, intersecting spirals, arcs, and vertical segments. They are barely visible in daylight, but at sunrise and sunset, they become vividly highlighted by the interplay of light and shadow. It is believed that these lines served as a unique tool. They could indicate seasonal changes, were used to track geographic direction, or convey ritual meaning. Some researchers claim that an ancient system of knowledge based on the passage of time can be discerned on the surface of the pillars. But the most striking feature of the Shumara pillars is their acoustic behavior. If you stand between two pillars and make a sound, you can hear an unusual echo, as if it were coming from deep within the earth. In other places, the pillars create an amplification effect, where a quiet voice becomes louder than expected. This acoustic phenomenon is similar to the operation of tuning forks. Some pillars seem to resonate at specific frequencies, amplifying vibrations. If you approach a pillar on a windy day, you can hear a soft hum, as if the granite itself were emitting sound. Perhaps ancient masters used the pillars as frequency markers, creating a special atmosphere during rituals or observations. Between the rows of pillars are platforms paved with thin stone slabs. These platforms have a perfectly flat surface and are slightly inclined toward the center of the complex. Some of the slabs feature circular patterns or indentations, forming regular geometric shapes. Interestingly, these markings are located precisely at the intersections of the pillar lines on virtual maps, creating the impression that the entire complex represents a giant coordinate grid. It's possible that the slabs served as sites for special rituals where body position or gaze direction played a significant role. However, another theory suggests that the slabs conceal entrances to underground chambers, as abnormal vibrations have been recorded in some areas when walking on the surface. One of the most enigmatic features of the complex is its strange play of light. On certain days of the year, sunlight passes through the slits between the pillars, creating long threads of light on the ground surface that intersect at perfect angles. These intersections create light patterns reminiscent of ancient diagrams. Some patterns change throughout the day, creating a sense of movement. It is believed that the Shumara pillars may have been part of a giant solar calendar, allowing for the tracking of not only the seasons, but also the cycles of the stars. However, it's not just light and sound that make the pillars mysterious. Some of them have been found to have unusually smooth areas, reminiscent of optical lenses. These areas reflect light in a way that creates a pinpoint glow. The glow intensifies with increasing air humidity or after rain, as if the stone were interacting with water. The internal structure of the granite likely includes rare minerals or crystals capable of enhancing the reflection. But why such areas are found only on a few pillars remains a mystery. Researchers also note temperature anomalies. In some areas between the pillars, the air is noticeably cooler or warmer than in adjacent areas. These zones are not associated with shade or solar heat, suggesting the presence of underground voids or hidden channels. However, ground-penetrating radar studies yield conflicting data. Sometimes underground structures are detected, sometimes not. This creates the impression that the Shumara Plateau conceals uneven layers, subject to change due to unknown factors. Local legends say the pillars were erected not by men, but by giants, who used them as landmarks. Others claim they were paths for spirits walking the earth on special days. Some stories claim that during special celestial events, the pillars would glow with a faint blue light. This legend is supported by the observations of several researchers. Indeed, under certain conditions, an icy glow appears on the surface of the pillars. Modern science attributes this to the properties of mica, a rare mineral that reflects moonlight. But not all pillars contain these inclusions. It is hypothesized that the granite pillars of Shumara are part of a vast energy complex. Their alignment coincides with magnetic anomalies, which may indicate the use of natural forces for rituals or research. Perhaps the ancient masters perceived the earth as a living being and built the complex to interact with its internal flows. Some researchers believe the vibrations generated by the pillars could have been used for spiritual practices, meditation, or even healing. Other theories suggest that the pillars may have served as a tool for transmitting knowledge. Their geometry, symmetry, and arrangement create the impression of a complex code written in stone. Perhaps each line and each slope signified specific information, accessible only to initiates. If so, the Shumara pillars are a gigantic stone book that we are only just beginning to read. Whatever their function, the complex is striking in its combination of astronomical precision, acoustic properties, interaction with light, and a carefully thought-out arrangement. The granite pillars of Shumar remain among the most mysterious and majestic monuments of antiquity, evoking in researchers the feeling that they are witnessing the work of a civilization whose understanding transcends our own understanding of the past. The underground chambers of Thistleon. The underground chambers of Thistleon are one of the most intricate and mystical complexes discovered in the rocky regions of the northern hills. They comprise a network of carefully carved chambers connected by inclined passages, hidden staircases, and narrow passages leading to levels long unknown to archaeologists. Despite numerous attempts to reconstruct the complex's structure, its true layout remains partially unclear. Each new section reveals contradictory data, indicating that Thistleon was conceived as an architecture that defied linear logic. The chamber's main feature is their incredible diversity, despite their apparent structural integrity. Some rooms are enormous, reminiscent of underground halls, while others are compact as if designed for a single person. But all exhibit perfect geometry. The walls, floors, and ceilings are crafted in such a way that even after centuries they show virtually no signs of deterioration. The stone is so smoothly worked that in some places it reflects light like polished metal. Furthermore, rock analysis shows no traces of grinding. Some researchers speculate that the stone was processed using high temperatures or vibrations, which could alter its structure from within. However, there is no concrete evidence of such a technique. The complex's most unusual feature is its acoustic, multi-layered nature. Sound in the chambers of Thistleon behaves unusually. In some rooms, voices sound amplified many times over, as if the walls reflect vibrations and cause them to circulate. In others, the sound disappears completely, as if absorbed into the stone. This effect can even vary within a single room. Researchers have identified several points, tentatively dubbed nodes of silence, where sound ceases instantly. Other points, conversely, create echo columns, where a single word triggers a chain of reflections lasting several seconds. These phenomena indicate a precise tuning of the stone surfaces, which made the space a kind of instrument for sound rituals or observations. Light phenomena are no less intriguing. Some chambers of Thistleon are illuminated by a faint bluish glow, even when no light sources are present. The glow is not bright, but it allows one to discern the outlines of walls and objects. Analysis of the stone revealed the presence of minerals that can faintly glow when exposed to moisture or temperature changes, but their concentration is too low to create consistent illumination. Furthermore, the glow intensifies during periods of atmospheric pressure fluctuations. Perhaps ancient craftsmen knew how to exploit the properties of these minerals and specifically designed the inner chambers to enhance their light. Some rooms have strange depressions in the floors and walls. These depressions vary in shape, round, oval, rectangular, and are located at the same height or depth. Researchers have two main hypotheses. The first is that the depressions served as anchor points for wooden or stone structures that have long since disappeared. The second is that the depressions were part of a system of measurements or visual cues used in rituals. Most intriguingly, the depressions resonate strongly when sound hits them. Even a light touch of a finger in the air produces a subtle metallic echo. This suggests that the depressions may have been part of the complex's acoustic structure. The central chamber of Thistleon is one of the largest and most enigmatic. It is shaped like a regular polygon, with a circular platform at its center, slightly elevated above the floor. Its surface features concentric rings and fine lines extending toward the walls. Some researchers believe this platform may have been the site of important rituals associated with astronomical cycles or seasonal changes. At certain times of day, light entering this chamber through a narrow vertical slit in the ceiling creates a complex pattern on the platform. This pattern may have served as a calendar or a tool for observing celestial bodies. Along the perimeter of the central chamber are strange vertical slits leading into deep, narrow shafts. The shafts are so smooth that they give the impression of a giant cylindrical instrument being used. These shafts do not lead to other rooms, at least not at known levels. But if you speak over one of them, the sound travels deep down so cleanly and evenly, as if there were a vast cavity within. Researchers speculate that the shafts may be part of a ventilation or sound system, distributing acoustic waves throughout the complex. However, there are also bolder hypotheses, for example, that the shafts were used as instruments for recording underground vibrations or natural phenomena. One of the most mysterious parts of the complex is the so-called transition zones. These are short sections connecting larger chambers. They are distinguished by the fact that the temperature in them is always lower than in the adjacent chambers. Sounds also behave differently. Even a loud voice in such zones is reduced to a quiet rustle. Perhaps these zones were used as preparation areas before entering the main sanctuary, or as part of a transitional ritual symbolizing cooling or purification. However, another theory is that such zones were created for protection or control. The temperature difference could have prevented unwanted processes in the stone or impeded the propagation of sound. An equally intriguing detail are the barely noticeable drawings on the walls. Lines, arcs, dots that don't seem to form a coherent text. They are arranged in a strict order and can only be seen under oblique lighting. Some drawings are repeated in different chambers, while others appear only once. This creates the impression that the complex was a kind of stone book, where certain captions or symbols open the way to a new level of knowledge or experience. Local legends are closely linked to the Thistleon complex. They tell of voices heard only when a person is alone in the central chamber. These voices supposedly warn or guide. Perhaps the legends arose due to the strange acoustics, but some researchers claim that certain vibrations are indeed perceived as whispers or speech. In ancient times, such phenomena could have been interpreted as communication with ancestral spirits. The underground chambers of Thistleon represent one of the most enigmatic architectural achievements of antiquity. Their geometric precision, acoustic properties, lighting effects, and complex structure testify to a high level of understanding of the properties of space. Perhaps the complex was a site of initiations, rituals, or scientific observations. Or perhaps it served purposes that modern science cannot yet fathom. But one thing is certain. Thistleon is a unique monument to ancient knowledge and the subtle art of working with stone and space. Stone masks of Ardat. The Ardat stone masks represent one of the most inexplicable collections of ritual stone objects found in the mountainous regions of the ancient plateau. Situated in caves and niches deep within the rock, each mask is carved as if to reflect not a human face, but a generalized image, an entity that combines the features of humans, animals, and symbolic beings. The masks vary in size, from small, fitting in the palm of a hand, to enormous, reaching 2 meters in height. But regardless of size, they are all crafted with astonishing precision and share a common characteristic: the sensation of a gaze that remains on a person even after leaving the mask's field of vision. The most astonishing feature of the masks is their material. Although they resemble ordinary stone in appearance, analysis shows that the rock has been subjected to impacts that have altered its structure. Some masks contain microscopic voids arranged in a strictly defined pattern. These voids may have been used to create an acoustic effect or acted as channels for transmitting vibrations. If you strike a mask or speak near it, you can hear a slight echo, as if the mask were responding, resonating at a frequency different from the human voice. This phenomenon has given rise to numerous legends about talking stones, capable of transmitting messages from the past. The faces depicted on the masks display a wide range of emotions, from calm and peace to rage or surprise. However, upon closer inspection, one can notice that the facial expressions change depending on the angle of illumination. In the shadows, the mask appears strictly neutral, but when the light is directed at a particular angle, the facial features come to life. The eyebrows raise, the gaze changes, and the mouth seems to expand the shadow, creating the illusion of movement. This optical property is explained by the special geometry of the carving and the meticulous calculation of the depth of each line. This is a striking example of how ancient artisans could manipulate light to create dynamic images long before the advent of such technology. In some caves, masks are arranged to form a veritable stone chorus. These masks are positioned at different heights and angles, creating a rhythmic sequence. If you stand in the center of the chamber and utter a sound, you can hear a sequence of responses. Each mask resonates differently, creating a multi-layered sound effect. Researchers speculate that these chambers may have been used for ritual chants or meditations, where the human voice interacted with the stone's resonant system. Perhaps ancient priests used masks to hear responses from spirits or direct their voices along sacred trajectories. Even more mysteries arise from the masks located at great heights within vertical cave shafts. They are positioned in such a way that they can only be accessed using modern equipment. The question of how ancient craftsmen managed to place massive stone masks at heights of 10 meters or more remains open. There are no traces of scaffolding or lifting mechanisms. Furthermore, the surfaces of the shafts are so smooth that it is impossible to imagine anyone climbing them manually. Perhaps access to these chambers was via a now-lost system of passages, blocked or destroyed over time. Some masks have holes where the eyes or mouth would be. However, these holes are not merely decorative. They lead into narrow channels running deep into the stone. These channels connect with neighboring masks, forming a system through which sound travels with remarkable clarity. Speaking in front of one mask can trigger a response in another located in a completely different part of the cave complex. This creates the impression that the masks are communicating with each other, transmitting sound along the stone's nerve pathways. This system may have been used to transmit ritual signals or to create complex acoustic effects during ceremonies. Some masks feature symbols located where the cheeks or forehead would be. These symbols resemble patterns found in other regions, spirals, intersecting lines, and small dots, sometimes forming geometric shapes. But the most interesting thing is the arrangement of the symbols. They are always applied as if they were part of the face, rather than a separate element. Perhaps the symbols reflected a quality or aspect of the spirit to which each mask was dedicated. In some cases, a sequence of symbols can be seen that is repeated only in certain caves. This suggests the existence of distinct schools or cult groups, each with its own distinctive mask-making methods. Another astonishing property of the Ardat masks is their ability to create light effects. Under certain conditions, the eyes of some masks begin to glow with a faint golden or bluish reflection. This effect does not always occur and, according to researchers, is due to the presence of rare minerals in the rock. But even with the presence of such minerals, it is impossible to explain why the effect only occurs in certain masks. Perhaps their creators deliberately selected specific stones with special properties. Or perhaps the masks' surfaces were treated in such a way as to enhance the weakest light sources. Legends preserved in local traditions claim that Ardat's masks served as spirit faces that accompanied people through rites of passage. According to legend, each mask belonged not to an individual, but to an entire clan or tribe, reflecting their collective memory. Some stories claim that the masks could tell the past if a person remained in complete silence with them. Interestingly, some researchers have indeed noted subjective sound effects during prolonged stays in the caves. Quiet vibrations, reminiscent of a faint whisper or distant breathing. But the question remains, who created these masks and for what purpose? Researchers note that the carving style is unlike any known ancient culture in the region. At the same time, the level of craftsmanship is too high to consider the masks primitive art. Perhaps their creators possessed knowledge about the nature of sound, light, and perception, which allowed them to create not just images, but also tools for interacting with people and space. The Ardat stone masks are more than just works of art. They are elements of a complex system, incorporating resonance chambers, lighting effects, symbolism, and profound ritual meaning. They remain among the most enigmatic finds of the ancient world, preserving the mystery of their role in the lives of vanished peoples and the knowledge lost along with them. Cave Palace of Tirana. The Tirana Cave Palace is one of those structures that challenges conventional notions about the development of ancient architectural traditions. Situated deep within a mountain range, its depths conceal a multi-chambered complex reminiscent of a palace not in its opulence but in its structure. It features halls, corridors, terraces, passages, balcony projections, singing niches, and even what could be called throne rooms. But most importantly, the palace was created entirely within a natural rock face, yet its geometry is so perfect that it appears artificial in the strictest sense. The first thing that strikes researchers is its scale. The central hall, known as the Heart of Tirana, reaches 20 meters in height. Its walls are smooth but not empty. They are decorated with deep vertical ribs, each of which creates an acoustic resonance. If a sound is pronounced in one part of the hall, the reflection on the opposite side occurs with a delay that precisely matches the shape of the room. This suggests that the hall was created not only as an architectural object, but also as a tool for human interaction with space through sound. In the center of the hall is a circular platform, slightly raised above the floor. Its surface is perfectly flat, with barely noticeable concentric lines extending toward the edges. These lines create an optical effect. A person standing on the platform appears taller than they actually are. The platform may have served as a site for ritual performances, divination, or musical performances. Evidence suggests that, at certain sound frequencies, the platform's surface began to vibrate, as if responding to the human voice. Modern research suggests that the platform's shape actually amplifies low frequencies, creating a living stone effect. The palace corridors are narrow and long, but never monotonous. Their walls curve slightly, as if following an invisible trajectory. These curves are no accident. They prevent the formation of direct sound waves, creating a soft, muted echo. As you walk along the corridor and speak, the sound seems to glide along the walls, receding or approaching, but never disappearing. This creates a disorienting effect, somewhat reminiscent of falling asleep. Perhaps the corridors were designed specifically to enhance the sensation of transition from one state to another, for example, before entering ritual chambers. A special place is occupied by the Tirana balconies, platforms located at different levels of the central hall. They are shaped like semicircles, connected by narrow bridges that are not immediately noticeable in the dim light of the hall. The balconies are perfectly level, but their surface is slightly rough, as if specially designed to prevent slipping. On their walls, one can discern symbols reminiscent of ancient diagrams, lines connecting dots, intersecting arcs, geometric shapes. It is possible that the balconies were used to observe rituals taking place in the center of the hall, or to participate in complex ceremonies based on the interplay of light and sound. The palace's lighting system remains one of the greatest mysteries. Despite the absence of natural light sources, many rooms remain illuminated by a soft, diffused light. Minerals capable of absorbing light during the day and releasing it at night have been discovered in the corners of some halls. However, the quantity of these minerals is too small to illuminate all the rooms. Moreover, some corridors glow even when there are no crystals or reflected rays. This suggests that a system of light channels once existed, possibly reflecting sunlight deep into the palace's depths. However, no such channels have yet been found. One of the most mysterious parts of the complex is the singing niche, a cavity in the wall of the central hall shaped like a crescent shell. Standing in the niche and making a sound, it is amplified tenfold, spreading throughout the hall. Moreover, the sound takes on a resonant quality, as if the voice were merging with the stone. Researchers believe the niche was created for ritual chants or musical performances, which play a key role in Turanian rites. Some legends say the singing niche could change a person's voice, imbuing it with a special power or depth. The lower level of the palace is also of interest. It features narrow passages leading to tiny chambers, each of varying shapes and sizes. The floors of some of them feature round, bowl-like depressions. These chambers may have been used for preparing participants for rituals or for meditative practices. Some chambers exhibit strange temperature anomalies. The air there is noticeably warmer or cooler than the surrounding air. This may indicate the presence of hidden channels or underground voids. There are also rooms where the walls are covered with thin vertical lines. These lines are not decorative. If you run your hand over them, you can feel a slight vibration. This indicates that the stone retains internal stresses, possibly related to ancient technological processes. One of the most intriguing elements of the Tirana Palace are the mirror walls. Surfaces reflecting light like polished panels were discovered in several corridors. However, the stone from which they are made is indistinguishable from the surrounding rocks. Analysis shows that the surface was processed in such a way that its microstructure became capable of reflecting light at precisely defined angles. These reflections could have been used to transmit signals or to create visual effects within the palace, enhancing ritual effects. Legends associated with the palace say it was a home for those who listen to the earth. Traditions claim that the art of hearing sounds emanating from the depths of the earth was taught here. According to one story, during certain lunar phases, the palace walls began to vibrate, and priests could predict future events by the nature of these vibrations. Modern research shows that weak natural vibrations are indeed observed in some areas of the complex, but their origin remains unclear. The Tirana Cave Palace is more than just an architectural complex. It's a multi-level system where every room, niche, platform, and line on the wall has its own meaning. Here, sound, light, geometry, and a sense of space form a unified whole, creating conditions for a profound impact on consciousness. Perhaps the palace served as a place of initiation, a place of learning, or a center of spiritual power. But whatever its function, it remains one of the most impressive examples of ancient subterranean architecture, unparalleled in known civilizations. The sinkholes of Kalasa. The Kalasa sinkholes are one of the most enigmatic natural and architectural phenomena in the region. At first glance, they appear to be ordinary karst sinkholes formed by landslides or the erosion of rock by groundwater. However, closer examination reveals that the origin of many of these sinkholes cannot be explained by natural geological processes. The shape of their walls, the location of the depressions, and the traces of stonework all suggest that the sinkholes may have been artificial, or at least refined by ancient craftsmen with a profound understanding of the properties of the earth. Each pit is a circular or oval depression ranging in depth from several to tens of meters. The walls of some pits are so smooth that they resemble wells carved with mathematical precision. These walls lack the usual signs of erosion or collapse, indicating a different formation method. In some places, vertical ridges are visible, likely created by tools or unknown technologies capable of altering the structure of the stone, making it soft and amenable to modeling. This phenomenon is particularly pronounced in pits where the walls are mirror smooth and the sound striking them travels unusually far. At the center of some sinkholes, rounded platforms, slightly raised above the floor, have been discovered. These platforms contain traces of concentric engravings resembling circular diagrams or ornaments. Interestingly, the engravings are arranged as if to indicate the movement of some kind of flow, perhaps water, air, or even energy. In some cases, the lines on the platforms align with the directions of underground cracks, indicating a deep understanding of geological processes. Perhaps ancient craftsmen used these pits as devices for monitoring underground changes, tracking fluctuations in soil, humidity, or temperature. Particularly notable are the pits that continue into the depths as horizontal tunnels. These tunnels are regularly shaped, and their walls are also polished. Some of them lead to small chambers reminiscent of observation chambers or shrines. These chambers often feature stone pillars arranged in a circle. The pillars have small holes through which air passes at certain wind speeds, creating a low-frequency hum. These sounds are reminiscent of the vibrations heard in mountain fissures. It's possible that such pits and tunnels were used to listen for the voice of the earth, natural vibrations associated with seismic or atmospheric events. But the most astonishing phenomenon of Kailasa remains the pits, which exhibit acoustic anomalies. If you stand at the edge of some of the pits and speak, the sound travels downwards without distortion and disappears, as if absorbed by the stone itself. In other pits, on the contrary, any word is reflected by numerous echoes that can last for several seconds. Scientists have also noticed that at certain air humidity levels, a sound resembling a slight pulsation can be heard. This phenomenon is associated with changes in pressure and temperature gradients within the pits, but what's unusual about it is that the pulsation appears strictly on specific days and times of day. This may be due to seasonal changes or the influence of groundwater. Symbols, lines, dots, and arcs arranged at the same height were discovered on the walls of some pits. They are barely visible and were long thought to be natural cracks. However, under certain lighting angles, the symbols form sequences resembling ancient diagrams. Some researchers speculate that these were markers indicating the direction of underground flows or served as landmarks for priests and craftsmen working in these areas. Perhaps the symbols were part of a ritual language associated with the veneration of the earth as a living being. Interestingly, some of the pits are connected by a system of underground channels located at uniform depths. These channels have smooth walls and perfectly curved arches, ruling out their natural origin. Some scholars believe this system could have been used to direct air or water currents, creating certain effects within the chambers. This hypothesis is supported by the fact that the air temperature in some pits is significantly lower than in the surrounding areas. It's possible that the underground channels provided air circulation, cooling the space and creating conditions for rituals or observation. However, there are also mystical theories about the origin of the sinkholes. Local legends say the pits were the eyes of the earth, through which sages could peer into its depths. According to legend, on certain nights, a faint bluish glow could be seen emanating from the pits. Some researchers have indeed recorded instances of the glow, but it remains unexplained. It may be due to mineral fluorescence, but why the glow only occurs in certain pits remains a mystery. Other legends claim that pits were used as transition points, boundaries between worlds. One story claims that in ancient times, priests descended into pits to hear the voices of their ancestors. These legends echo the acoustic properties of pits, which allow sound to propagate in unusual ways. Perhaps ancient cultures used these properties to create effects that enhanced the mystical perception of space. Particularly impressive is the pit known as the Silent Bowl. It is shaped like a perfect cylinder, and its walls are so smooth that they reflect light, creating the impression of a shallower depth. In this pit, sound disappears completely. Even the fall of a stone produces no echo. This unusual phenomenon has no simple explanation. Perhaps the walls absorb vibrations, or the shape of the pit creates conditions for the complete dispersion of sound. This pit became the center of numerous ritual practices in ancient times, as evidenced by the remains of fires and objects found at its edge. The Kailasa sinkholes remain one of the most enigmatic sites, intertwining natural processes, ancient knowledge, and mystical practices. These structures may have served simultaneously as observatories, acoustic instruments, and ritual spaces. Their functions remain unknown, but one thing is clear. The Kailasa sinkholes are not random geological formations, but part of a deep tradition of interaction with the earth, bequeathed by an ancient people in the hope that future generations would desire to hear its voice. Sunken slabs of Caria. The sunken Carian slabs are one of the most enigmatic underwater architectural complexes ever discovered off ancient coastlines. At depths of 10 to 40 meters, massive stone slabs lie, forming a structure that is difficult to consider natural. They are arranged in ledges, terraces, and rectangular platforms, and their surfaces display workmanship that is uncharacteristic of a natural origin. The slabs are so large that each could have weighed tens of tons, and it remains unclear how they ended up on the seafloor, whether as a result of the slow subsidence of the coastline or as a result of a sudden cataclysm that destroyed the ancient city. The submerged complex is striking in its symmetry. The slabs are arranged as if to create a multi-tiered system, reminiscent of a giant staircase descending into the depths. Each level is connected to the next by wide passages that smoothly disappear into the sedimentary deposits. Some slabs display carved lines and depressions that could have served as markers or water guides. Interestingly, these lines coincide with the directions of ancient currents reconstructed from geological data. It is possible that the slabs were used as part of a hydraulic system regulating the flow of water in a now uninhabited region. However, the very nature of the stone from which the slabs are made raises questions. Analysis shows that the material was subjected to heat, imparting unusual strength. Some slabs contain areas where the rock melted and then solidified, forming smooth surfaces. This type of processing requires conditions difficult to achieve without advanced technology. It has been suggested that the slabs may have been part of a complex harnessing volcanic energy, but no traces of high-temperature processes have been found nearby. Perhaps ancient craftsmen possessed knowledge of heat-treating stone, a technique lost to modern civilizations. Researchers are particularly interested in the so-called water corridors, long grooves located on the surface of the slabs. They create complex patterns, forming a network of channels. If water were to flow through these channels, it would form stable and directed streams. Some experts believe the complex was used for rituals associated with water, which the ancients considered a sacred element. It's possible that the water flowing through the channels created sound effects reminiscent of a melodic murmur. This could have transformed the complex into a place of ritual animation of the space. But in addition to the hydraulic features, signs resembling symbols were also discovered on the slabs. These signs are located in hard-to-reach places, impossible to reach without diving. They resemble ancient writing, but do not correspond to any known writing system. They may have designated important points in the complex, ritual markers, or instructions intended for initiates. Some researchers suggest that the symbols served as part of a monitoring system. They could have shown changes in water levels during different periods of the year. In certain areas of the complex, stone pillars are found, partially hidden by sediment. Their shape is irregular, but the surface is carefully finished. The pillars are positioned as if they served as landmarks or support points. Some of them have holes through which ropes or wooden beams could have passed. This may indicate that there were superstructures above the slabs, possibly wooden platforms or covered spaces. If so, the sunken complex could have been part of a large city or temple destroyed by a flood or geological cataclysm. One of the most enigmatic features of the sunken slabs of Caria is their ability to create acoustic effects. In calm weather, divers note that certain areas of the complex emit a slight hum, reminiscent of vibrations. This hum intensifies as they approach deep cracks between the slabs. It may be related to the movement of underwater currents or geological features, but the effect is too consistent to be considered random. Ancient legends from coastal settlements speak of singing stones heard at night during calm seas. This may indicate that the region's inhabitants were aware of the complex's acoustic properties and may have used them in rituals. Interestingly, the Carian slabs exhibit strange optical phenomena. At certain angles, some of them reflect sunlight, creating the appearance of the stone emitting its own radiance. Water enhances this effect, creating bright streaks of light on the slab surfaces. Perhaps ancient craftsmen deliberately exploited these properties to create visual effects that played a role in rituals. If streams of water once clung to the slab surfaces, the reflected radiance could have been part of a complex play of light, perceived by ritual participants as a manifestation of celestial forces. But the most mysterious part of the complex remains the deep crevices leading to unknown underground structures. Ground-penetrating radar surveys reveal the presence of voids beneath the slabs, but the exact layout of these voids is unknown. Perhaps underground halls or tunnels, once part of the complex, are hidden beneath the sunken slabs of Caria. Legends of ancient peoples speak of a stone city in the sea, where priests preserved knowledge of the movement of water and the rhythms of the earth. These legends may be based on actual observations of the complex, which today lies hidden beneath the water. Some scholars suggest that the sunken Carian slabs were the center of an ancient school that studied the properties of water, stone, and light. Others believe they were a ritual complex dedicated to water deities. However, a more ambitious theory exists. The slabs were part of a vast mechanism that harnessed the power of the tides to control energy flows. There is no evidence to support this theory, but the unusual features of the slabs, their structure, arrangement, and interaction with water, raise speculation. Today, the sunken slabs of Caria remain a site combining archaeological value and mystical appeal. They conceal many secrets related to both natural processes and the lost work of ancient craftsmen. Perhaps one day a connection between the slabs and other structures in the region will be discovered, and then the role they played in the life of a vanished culture will become clear. But for now, the sunken complex of Caria remains a silent witness to a time when man interacted with the sea not as a threat, but as a source of strength. Ancient niches of ether. The ancient niches of Ophir represent one of the most enigmatic and unusual architectural phenomena preserved in the rock masses of ancient mountain ranges. Over hundreds of meters along the slopes and inner walls of the gorge, dozens, perhaps hundreds of depressions, niches of varying sizes and shapes, from small square openings to large arched doorways, are located. At first glance, they appear randomly formed, but their arrangement follows a strict logic. Each niche is oriented at a specific angle, which is repeated throughout the complex. This repeating orientation indicates that the niches were used as a unified system, rather than as random cuts in the stone. The structure of the niches is strikingly precise. Even the smallest depressions have perfectly smooth edges. Their depth and width are measured to fractions of a centimeter, which cannot be explained by primitive tools. The stone from which they are carved is hard, layered, and virtually impossible to work without modern equipment. However, ancient craftsmen were able to create shapes in it, resembling pockets or cells. Some niches are located so high that it is impossible to imagine how people could have reached them without special means. Furthermore, there are no traces of scaffolding, bracing, or supports on the stone surface, creating the impression that the craftsmen were working directly on the sheer walls or using extinct climbing techniques. One of the main mysteries is the purpose of the niches. No traces of objects or organic remains were found in them, ruling out their use as storage or ritual repositories. However, in some niches, barely discernible traces of polishing were observed on the interior walls. These traces are arranged in thin lines, as if the surface had been subjected to gentle vibrations. This may indicate that the niches were used for rituals involving sound. Some researchers note that, at a certain humidity, the niches begin to emit a soft, yet persistent, ringing sound. They may have served as resonators, transforming the gorge space into a gigantic acoustic instrument. No less astonishing is the niche's connection to sunlight. On certain days of the year, Primarily during the equinoxes and solstices, the sun's rays strike some of the niches at an ideal angle, completely illuminating their interior surfaces. This effect is noticeable only at a few points in the complex, and the angles of illumination coincide with specific landmarks on the mountain peaks. This suggests that the niches may have served as solar indicators, recording the cycles of time. Ancient priests may have used them to track the sun's movements and conduct seasonal rituals. However, there is a deeper mystery. Analysis of the arrangement of the niches revealed that their orientations form a complex system, reminiscent of a map of the celestial constellations. Some niches form figures similar to star patterns, but on a different scale. This connection may indicate that the ether niches served as a kind of star archive, a place where celestial changes were recorded, or a space where rituals associated with celestial powers were performed. Perhaps the ancient masters were attempting to create a reflection of the cosmos on Earth by inscribing their knowledge into stone. Interestingly, symbols were discovered on the edges of some niches: short lines, dots, and small triangles. The symbols were carved with minimal depth, but their placement strictly corresponds to the orientation of the niches. Each group of symbols is repeated only in certain clusters, indicating the existence of an internal structure. Perhaps these signs served as signposts indicating the purpose of each niche, or they were elements of a knowledge transfer system accessible only to initiates. Some researchers suggest that the niches may have been part of an ancient learning center where the laws of light, sound, and the cosmos were studied. The complexity of the complex is enhanced by the presence of several large arched niches located in the most inaccessible areas. These niches are up to 3 meters high and approximately 1 meter deep. The surface inside them is polished to a mirror-like shine. When light enters these niches, it is reflected by numerous points, creating a whimsical interplay of reflections. Speaking within an arched niche, the sound acquires a rich resonance, and the voice can be heard far away, across several levels of the gorge. This suggests that the arched niches were used as remote controls for ritual invocations or as sites for ancient ceremonies. The hanging niches, small depressions located on the steep walls at considerable heights, also play a significant role. Their shape and size match those of the niches in the lower part of the complex, but they are impossible to reach without modern equipment. The only explanation is that ancient craftsmen used vertical movement methods that left no trace. Perhaps there were wooden structures, long since destroyed, or ropes that disappeared over time. But this doesn't explain how the craftsman could work with such precision on steep surfaces without the slightest deviation from perfect geometry. The niches located at the turns of the gorge deserve special attention. They seem to have served as beacons. If you stand in one niche and make a sound, the echo is transmitted from one niche to the next, creating a chain of sound reflections. This discovery suggests that the complex could have been used to transmit signals over long distances. If ancient craftsmen understood the principles of sound propagation, they could have used such chains of niches for communication or to convey important information for ritual or practical purposes. Interestingly, some niches tend to exhibit a faint glow in dim light. This glow may be caused by the presence of minerals that reflect weak light sources or by the specific structure of the stone. However, this phenomenon does not always occur, but only during certain periods of humidity or atmospheric pressure. Perhaps ancient masters used this effect to mark the beginning of rituals or to create a mystical atmosphere. Local legends claim that the ether niches were a place where the earth spoke to the sky. According to legend, anyone standing before one of the large niches could hear the voice of stone reflecting their thoughts. Of course, such stories can be explained by the complex's acoustic properties. However, when combined with the unusual geometry, orientation, and lighting effects, the legends take on new meaning. Perhaps the ancients truly considered the niches to be parts of a sacred space where human interaction with cosmic forces took place. The ancient niches of Ether remain one of the most enigmatic monuments of ancient stone architecture. These are more than just depressions carved into the rock. They are a complex system that combines knowledge of geometry, acoustics, light effects, and celestial cycles. Each niche is part of a vast stone code that remains undecipherable. The complex likely served as an observatory, a school, and a ritual space where ancient masters studied the interaction of light, sound, and stone, seeking to penetrate the mysteries of the universe. Underground Hall of Kabur. The Kabur underground chamber is located deep within a hilly massif, concealed beneath a dense layer of ancient sediment. It was discovered by accident when, while exploring fissures in the rock, one of the passages collapsed, revealing a vast space later dubbed the main chamber. From the very first steps inside, it became clear that the researchers were confronted with a unique structure. The chamber was a gigantic polygonal chamber with perfectly smooth walls, and its geometry bespoke a precision and deliberate design beyond the capabilities of most ancient cultures. The walls of the hall form a complex pattern of horizontal and vertical lines, reminiscent of a framework. However, upon detailed analysis, it was revealed that these lines are not traces of processing, but rather parts of the stone's internal structure, altered by an unknown technology. Apparently, ancient craftsmen were able to manipulate the stone so that it would form into desired shapes without visible traces of carving or polishing. As a result, the walls of the hall appear almost organic, as if they were created by an architect who understood the properties of the rock and could shape it into perfect surfaces. One of the most striking features of the Kabur Hall is its acoustics. Speak a word in the center of the chamber and it reverberates repeatedly, creating a complex pattern of sounds, as if the room were responding with its own voice. In other parts of the hall, the sound, on the contrary, vanishes, as if dissolving into invisible niches. These anomalous phenomena indicate that the shape of the hall was carefully calculated to control vibrations. Perhaps the ancient masters used the hall as an acoustic laboratory or a ritual site where sound played a key role. These complex sound effects testify to a profound understanding of how the shape of a space influences the propagation of sound. The hall's ceiling is a wide vault rising to a considerable height. It is not flat, but consists of numerous petal-like facets. These facets are positioned at various angles, creating a play of light that is particularly noticeable when illuminated by torches or modern lanterns. Some researchers note that the faceted vault may have served to enhance lighting effects, possibly associated with ritualistic activities. When the light is positioned correctly, shadows appear on the ceiling, forming figures reminiscent of ancient symbols. These symbols are invisible under normal lighting, making the Kabur Hall akin to a living painting, revealing itself only at the right moment. The floor of the hall consists of enormous stone slabs, each bearing barely discernible indentations. These indentations are arranged in a circle, in concentric rows, and their shape resembles the marks left by heavy objects or mechanisms. However, no objects have been found, and the indentations themselves are too precise to be accidental. It's possible the hall floor was used to install ritual or measuring devices, long since lost. Some researchers speculate that the slabs may have served as the base for a giant stone instrument designed to manipulate sound or earth vibrations. Particularly intriguing are the small side rooms located around the perimeter of the hall. These are narrow chambers, each with its own acoustics. In one room, sound is amplified, as if the walls act as a resonator. In another, it disappears completely. These rooms may have been used for special rituals or as places of concentration. In one room, the walls are covered with subtle spiral lines that become clearly visible when illuminated at a certain angle. Perhaps these spirals served as part of a system for recording knowledge or were symbols of energy flows that the ancient masters perceived as a natural part of the world. There's also a theory that the side rooms served as a school or a place of study. Traces of stands or supports, which could have supported objects, were found in some niches. However, no artifacts have survived. The only thing that has been discovered is that the walls in many rooms contain minerals that emit a faint glow. This glow is especially pronounced in high humidity conditions. This glow isn't intense, but it creates the impression that the walls have a life of their own. Perhaps ancient craftsmen were aware of these properties of the stone and used them in their rituals or teaching. The most mysterious part of the Kabur Hall remains the so-called Eastern Niche. Situated in one of the walls, this niche has an unusual shape. It resembles an elongated oval tapering toward the base. The niche's walls are meticulously polished, and the light entering it seems to become brighter than before. Some researchers believe the niche served to observe light effects or was part of a ritual associated with perceiving light as a sacred force. Interestingly, the niche's position aligns with the direction of sunrise on certain days of the year, suggesting it was used as a solar indicator. But the most important aspect of the Kabur Underground Hall remains the question of its origin. There is no evidence of a culture capable of constructing such complex underground structures existing in the region. There are no tool marks, no organic remains that would allow dating the complex. It seems the hall has always existed, hidden deep within the earth. Some scholars believe the complex may have been created in an era predating known civilizations and belonged to a community of craftsmen whose knowledge has been lost. Others believe the hall was built gradually over many generations, each time expanding and becoming more complex. Local legends say that the Kabur Hall was the first house of sound, a place where ancient priests learned to hear and respond to the voices of the world. According to the tales, on certain nights, the walls of the hall would begin to pulsate, reflecting invisible vibrations in the earth. Some claim that at these moments one could hear messages from ancestors or see the shadows of those who built the hall. Of course, these legends are difficult to confirm, but they convey the air of mystery that has surrounded Kabur for centuries. Today, the Kabur Underground Hall attracts not only archaeologists, but also researchers of acoustics, geology, and light. Each new analysis reveals even more mysteries, and the lack of traces of human habitation challenges traditional notions about the ancient builders. Perhaps the hall served not for habitation, but for knowledge, for research, observation, and rituals related to vibrations, light, and geometry. This makes Kabur one of the most important monuments of the ancient world, one that continues to hold its secrets. Passages of the Amatra Fortress. The passages of the Amatra Fortress represent one of the most enigmatic underground systems associated with the ancient defensive complex, whose ruins now rise above a dry plateau. On the surface, the fortress appears to be an ordinary stone fortification, fragments of walls, remains of towers, and ruined staircases. But underground, a completely different story unfolds, a hidden world of corridors, passages, staircases, and halls, interconnected into a complex network, likely intended not only to facilitate secret passage, but also to fulfill ritual or research functions beyond military architecture. The first mentions of Amatra's underground passages appear in the legends of local tribes, which claim the fortress possessed a second body, an invisible space accessible only to initiates. According to these legends, the passages were used not only for shelter, but also for communicating with the breath of the earth. When archaeologists began excavations, they discovered an entrance hidden beneath a fallen stone block. The descent led to a wide passageway, the walls of which were polished to a mirror shine. Such masterful stonework is unusual for defensive structures and suggests another meaning behind the complex's creation. The passages of Amatra vary in width and height. Some are so narrow that a person can only pass sideways, while others are so wide that they resemble underground streets. Moreover, the corridors are never strictly straight. They curve gently, as if following the natural flow of underground forces. Perhaps the ancient masters were guided by the characteristics of the rock or by certain internal energy lines, the nature of which we can only guess at. barely visible signs are etched into the walls of some corridors. These aren't written symbols in the traditional sense, but rather geometric ones, angles, dots, and short lines, repeated in specific patterns. These signs are arranged at uniform heights, suggesting a notational system. They may have indicated directions or marked important points. However, another theory suggests that the signs are linked to an acoustic coding system. Where the signs are grouped, acoustic anomalies are observed. The sound takes on a metallic tint, intensifies, or disappears completely. This suggests that the builders of Amatra had a keen understanding of how sound interacts with the shape of space. Particularly impressive are the so-called crossing halls, rooms where several passages connect. These halls are polygonal in shape, and their walls slope slightly inward, creating a sense of pressure. In one of these halls, researchers discovered a round pedestal with a perfectly flat surface. It is unknown whether it served as a place for rituals, observation, or the installation of some object. However, acoustic studies show that sound emitted from the surface of the pedestal spreads throughout the hall in an unusual manner, as if penetrating the corridors. Deep within the complex are wide shafts, descending tens of meters. Their walls bear no traces of tools, and the surface is so smooth as if created by a single movement. The shafts connect with narrow passages leading to lower levels. At these levels, the air becomes cooler and the sound quieter. Some researchers speculate that the lower levels were used as storage areas or observation points for underground vibrations. Small, round, bowl-like depressions have been discovered here. They are arranged symmetrically, suggesting their function as resonators or elements of an energy system. An important part of the passages is the gallery of sounds, a long corridor whose walls possess a strange ability to amplify high frequencies and suppress low ones. This creates the sensation that one hears not one's own footsteps, but distant sounds coming from an unknown source. Some researchers have described the phenomenon of double echo, where the sound returns as two distinct waves, separated by a barely perceptible interval. This may be a result of the complex geometry of the corridor, but it's also possible that the ancient masters deliberately created such effects. There are also secret passages that are invisible under normal light. Some of them open only when light hits them at a certain angle, revealing hidden lines or protrusions that serve as door mechanisms. In one of these hidden passages, the walls were found to be covered with thin parallel lines, creating an iridescent pattern. This effect resembles an optical illusion, but scientists believe the lines may have served as part of a ritual sign or a guide for initiates. The complex's ventilation system is also of interest. Despite the depth of the passages, the air inside remains fresh. At times, a slight breeze can be felt, as if a wind were circulating through the corridors. However, no openings leading to the outside have been found. Some researchers speculate that the ventilation system relies on hidden channels running within the stone and emerging at unknown points. Perhaps the builders of Amatra were aware of natural underground air currents and utilized them to create comfortable conditions for those deep within. Legends surrounding the Amatra fortress mention guardians of the underground light, which some attribute to a soft glow on the walls of the corridors. This glow is rarely observed, but several research groups have recorded a faint bluish glow that occurs in high humidity. It lasts only a short time and fades with air movement. Scientists attribute this effect to minerals contained within the stone, but why the glow appears only in certain areas remains a mystery. One of the most mystical parts of the complex is the Shadow Hall, a room without a single corner, with walls that flow smoothly into the ceiling. In this room, any light creates unusual shadows. They don't match the shapes of objects and sometimes change without a visible source. Legends claim that initiation rituals took place here, with shadows acting as intermediaries between worlds. Perhaps this room was intended for meditation or for observing the effects of light associated with the movement of the sun. The passages of the Amatra fortress reveal a remarkable combination of military architecture, scientific knowledge, and ritual practices. They demonstrate that the ancient people who built the complex possessed a profound understanding of the properties of stone, sound, light, and space. Perhaps for them, the fortress served not only as a defensive structure, but also as a school, a temple, a means of communicating with the earth or the sky. But whatever its true function, Amatra remains one of the most enigmatic monuments of antiquity, still concealing many secrets. Rock doors of Kutama. The Kutama rock doors are one of the most astonishing phenomena of ancient architecture, whose nature still sparks debate among researchers. On the sheer walls of a mountain plateau, where crumbling rocks create a chaotic pattern of cracks, are perfect doorways carved with such precision that one gets the impression that we are looking at the remains of another era, whose understanding of stone was far more profound than that of modern craftsmen. These doors are found at varying heights, from ground level to inaccessible sections of the cliff, inaccessible without specialized equipment. However, no traces of lifting structures, supports, or ladders have been found nearby. Each door has rounded corners and tapers slightly upward, reminiscent of arched portals. But inside, there is emptiness. No traces of doors remain, no hinges, no grooves for bolts. Meanwhile, the interior walls of the doorways are so smooth, as if they were not carved but pressed from a monolith. Many researchers suggest that ancient builders used methods that altered the structure of stone at the molecular level, making it malleable. This process cannot be explained by known technologies, but traces of it are found in other monuments in the region, suggesting the existence of a common tradition or school of craftsmen. The orientation of the doors is particularly noteworthy. They are positioned strictly along a north-south or east-west axis, eliminating any chance. This orientation may have had astronomical significance. The doors could have served as sunlight indicators or been linked to observations of the movements of celestial bodies. On certain days of the year, the sun's rays strike the openings at an ideal angle, causing the interior walls to shimmer with a soft light. This effect is especially noticeable in the morning, when the sun barely rises above the horizon. But the mystery of the doors lies not only in their placement, but also in their acoustic properties. If you stand in front of the doorway and make a sound, you can hear an unusual echo that returns with a delay, seemingly altering the timbre of your voice. In some doors, the sound is amplified, while in others, it disappears completely, creating an absorption effect. These phenomena cannot be explained by simple physical laws and indicate that the doorways served not only as architectural elements, but also as instruments for manipulating sound. They may have been used during rituals where sound played an important role. In several places, researchers discovered small depressions near doors, shaped like bowls carved into stone. These depressions serve no decorative purpose and are strictly aligned. When filled with water, the water vibrates at a certain angle, creating patterns on the surface. This may indicate that the depressions were used as part of a timekeeping system or for rituals involving water. In any case, their location and shape clearly had a functional significance. Some of the Kutama doors lead inside the mountain, ending in small chambers. These chambers are rectangular in shape and have perfectly smooth walls. On their surfaces, barely discernible lines intersecting at complex angles can be seen. These may have been maps, diagrams, or symbolic images, the purpose of which remains unknown. However, many researchers believe the chambers were used for meditation or observation. Their acoustics are unique. The sound inside these chambers takes on a metallic tint, which may indicate the intentional creation of resonant effects. Also of interest is the fact that some of the doors show signs of exposure to high temperatures. The stone has darkened and become denser than the surrounding rock. This suggests that the doors may have been heat-treated, perhaps during rituals or construction. However, the temperatures required for such heat treatment are impossible to achieve with simple fire. This suggests the use of unknown technologies involving concentrated heat or energy. Another mystery is the lack of signs of habitation near the doors. No traces of fires, sleeping areas, weapons, or household items were found. This means the doors and chambers were not used as dwellings or storage areas. Their purpose was different. Perhaps they served as part of a sacred complex where rituals were performed or knowledge was stored. Some researchers believe the Kutama doors are portals, symbolizing the transition between worlds, and that ancient artisans used the space behind the doors as places to communicate with spirits or natural forces. A curious feature is that some doors are located in areas where the rock mass contains natural cracks or voids. The doorways seem to open access to these natural cavities, transforming them into part of the architectural complex. Perhaps ancient masters considered such cavities sacred and sought to integrate them into their structures. In this case, the doors served as passages to natural power places where rituals were performed or sacred objects were stored. No less intriguing is the concept of double doors. Some openings are arranged in pairs, one above the other. The upper doors are inaccessible without special equipment, but their presence suggests the use of vertical space. Perhaps there were wooden platforms or stairs long since destroyed. Or perhaps the doors were created as symbolic elements not intended for physical use. Local legends tell of the Kutama doors singing in windy weather. According to elders, when the wind passed through the openings, it created melodic sounds that were perceived as messages from the spirits. Some researchers have indeed recorded low-frequency vibrations occurring in certain wind directions. These vibrations may have been amplified by the rock formations, creating the effect of a natural instrument played by the wind itself. But the most intriguing feature remains the doors leading into a blank wall. They appear as perfect as the others, but there's no void behind them. Research has shown that some of these doors conceal sections of stone of a different composition. Perhaps the doors served as markers, indicating locations where important knowledge was stored, or where rituals associated with the energy of the stone were performed. The Kutama rock doors are a unique monument of ancient architecture, connected to the understanding of light, sound, orientation, and sacred spaces. They remind us that ancient craftsmen possessed knowledge different from ours, and their methods of interacting with stone remain unexplained. Perhaps the Kutama doors served simultaneously as tools, symbols, and points of interaction with a world where the material and spiritual existed in profound harmony. Golden stone circles. The golden stone circles are among the most enigmatic and least studied megalithic complexes of the ancient world. They are located on a plateau where moss-covered boulders form perfect or near-perfect circles, some reaching several dozen meters in diameter. But the key is not the scale, but the precision. Each stone fits into the circle as if its position had been calculated in advance, taking into account its height, weight, orientation, and relationship to neighboring stones. The golden circles resemble neither classical hinges nor astronomical observatories, although elements of their structure echo both traditions. They seem to belong to a different category, an architecture based on the interaction of vibrations, light, and stone memory. The first thing that strikes researchers is the appearance of the stones. Many of them have perfectly smooth surfaces, despite the surrounding rock being extremely rough and prone to cracking. Some boulders show signs of melting, as if the stone had been exposed to high temperatures. This cannot be the result of a natural fire or volcanic activity, which is absent in the region. It is more likely that the stones were processed using a specialized method that altered their structure, smoothed their surfaces, or shaped them into desired shapes. When touching these stones, a slight vibration is felt, barely perceptible, yet eternal, as if the stone retains a resonance imprinted within it many centuries ago. The golden circles vary in size and orientation. Some form perfect circles, while others are close to oval or spiral shapes. Each circle has a unique structure, a different number of stones, their height, and the distance between them. However, even this diversity is subject to a hidden order. If all the circles are plotted on a map, it becomes clear that they form a gigantic network connected by geometric lines. Some lines align with the directions of sunrise on the equinoxes and solstices, while others correspond to the appearance of bright stars. This suggests that the golden circles served as part of an astronomical complex designed to observe celestial cycles. But no less important is the acoustic aspect of the circles. If you stand in the center of any of them and clap your hands, the sound propagates in an unusual way. Some frequencies are amplified, others are suppressed. This effect creates the sensation that the stones form an open-air resonant chamber. In some circles, the sound travels between the stones, forming a chain of echoes, as if each boulder possessed its own frequency. Perhaps the ancient masters used golden circles for sound rituals or meditations based on the vibrations of the stone. It is speculated that each circle was tuned to a specific frequency, creating a unique acoustic field. The stones with holes are particularly noteworthy. Some boulders have round holes several centimeters in diameter. Looking through these holes at the horizon, one can observe the sunrise or moonrise at certain times, as well as the appearance of bright stars. This clearly suggests that the holes served as astronomical sites. But the holes are unusual. Their inner surface is polished to a mirror shine, as if designed for optical effects. Some researchers speculate that through these holes one could see light phenomena invisible to the naked eye. Perhaps they were unique devices for observing celestial transits. Geometric patterns were discovered on the surface of some of the stones, parallel lines, zigzags, and intersecting arcs. Remarkably, these patterns form a system that repeats across different circles. This suggests the presence of a single tradition or school of craftsmen. Perhaps each pattern reflected a specific concept, the path of the sun, the cycle of time, or the direction of energy. One of the stones contained a spiral containing a small circle, a symbol also found in other regions as a sign of the core of the world or center of power. Perhaps the golden circles were part of a ritual system based on the idea of cyclicality and harmony. But there's another phenomenon that makes the circles truly unique: light effects. On certain days of the year, especially in spring and autumn, the stones begin to reflect light as if coated with a thin layer of silver. This occurs at sunset, when the sun's rays fall at a low angle. Then the stones seem to glow. This effect may be caused by minerals contained within the stone, but its consistency and repeatability create the impression that ancient craftsmen deliberately selected or crafted the stones to achieve this effect. Perhaps the glow signaled the beginning of a ritual or indicated a special time of year. No less mysterious are the underground structures associated with the golden circles. Void spaces, natural or artificial chambers connected by tunnels, have been discovered beneath several circles. These voids have perfectly smooth walls, suggesting their artificial origin. They may have served as storage areas for ritual objects or meditation spaces. The air in these chambers is unusually cool, and the sound within behaves strangely. The walls seem to respond to the human voice. This may indicate the use of resonance technologies. Local legends say that the stone circles of Galden were places of power where ancient people could communicate with the spirits of their ancestors or with celestial beings. According to legend, at the center of each circle was a point where the earth breathed, and one could hear its voice. These legends resonate remarkably with the acoustic properties of the circles. Perhaps the ancients truly perceived the interaction of sound and stone as the voice of the earth. It is hypothesized that the golden circles were part of a ritual route connecting different points in the region. Each circle served as a stop along the route, where ritual participants were required to perform certain actions: observe the sky, make a sound, or determine the direction of the sun. This route could have been connected to seasonal festivals or the cycles of nature. The Galden stone circles remain one of the most enigmatic architectural complexes of antiquity. Their geometry, acoustics, lighting effects, and possible astronomical functions testify to a high degree of knowledge and a profound understanding of space. The circles may have served simultaneously as an observatory, a temple, a school, and a place of power. But while the mystery of the stone circles remains unsolved, they continue to inspire researchers and spark the imagination. Cave vaults of Eller. The Eller cave vaults represent one of the most impressive examples of ancient underground architecture, where the natural rock forms have been transformed into a multi-level system of halls, galleries, and passages. This complex is located in a remote gorge, accessible only by narrow paths cut into the rock mass. The first explorers to penetrate the vaults were struck not so much by the presence of the caves themselves as by the level of craftsmanship of their walls and vaults. It seemed as if a natural cave had become the foundation for an ensemble of artificially created spaces, united by a single, carefully considered architectural logic. The main feature of the Eller vaults is their complex geometry. The ceilings of the halls are smooth arches that transition into polygonal shapes, sometimes reminiscent of open flowers or multifaceted domes. Every facet, every curve, seems designed to create the perfect acoustic space. Speak a word, and the sound spreads throughout the hall as if guided by invisible hands. In some places it intensifies, in others it fades, and sometimes it returns, like an echo from another time. This clearly indicates that the Eller vaults were designed as giant resonators intended for specific rituals or sound practices. Particularly striking are the walls, covered in delicate carved patterns. These patterns resemble waves radiating from a central point. In some rooms, the waves point toward the ceiling, in others, toward the entrance, and in others, they converge in narrow niches located at different levels. If you touch these carvings, you can feel the stone vibrate, very faintly but noticeably. Perhaps ancient craftsmen were able to influence the resonant properties of the stone, creating surfaces capable of amplifying or redirecting vibrations. Similar patterns are also found on the floor. There, they form a network of channels reminiscent of lines of force or energy flows that direct sound and light within the complex. The cave complex's structure comprises several levels. The upper levels contain halls with high vaults and wide passages, while the lower levels contain narrow corridors leading to small chambers. These chambers have unusual shapes. Some are round, reminiscent of eggs, while others are polygonal, but always with perfectly smooth surfaces. Some researchers suggest that these chambers were used for meditation or rituals associated with achieving inner focus. Their acoustics contribute to this. The sound within the chambers takes on a subtle metallic hue as if the stone were responding to the human voice. Interestingly, many of the cave's chambers exhibit a soft glow, even in the absence of light sources. This phenomenon is explained by the presence of minerals that can reflect and scatter weak light sources from outside. However, in some places, the glow intensifies, which defies explanation. Perhaps the ancient masters knew which minerals to use to achieve luminous effects, or perhaps they created a special surface structure capable of retaining light. In some chambers, the walls appear to be covered with a thin layer of shiny material, creating the sensation of a stone light. One of the most enigmatic elements of the Eller vaults is the Hall of Voices, a vast space with perfect acoustics. In this hall, sound is repeatedly amplified and reflected from different points, creating the impression of invisible participants in the room. This effect is intensified at low frequencies when vibrations become almost tangible. Some researchers speculate that the hall was used for collective rituals during which participants could experience unity through sound. Perhaps this hall served as an ancient temple, where sound served as a mediator between man and the earth. No less intriguing is the Shadow Gallery, a long corridor whose walls are polished to create unique lighting effects. Under the light of a torch or lamp, the walls reflect the shadows, intensifying them and sometimes changing their shape. At certain moments, the shadows seem to move on their own, transforming into figures resembling animals, people, or symbols. Perhaps this gallery was used for visual rituals involving the observation of light phenomena. Or it served as a form of training, allowing participants to observe living light that reflects the inner essence of a person. The lower levels of the complex contain narrow passages leading to another mysterious area, the so-called Eller Ring. It is a circular room with a perfectly flat floor and a domed ceiling. Fine concentric lines are visible on the floor, converging toward a small depression in the center. Some researchers believe this room was used as an observatory or a place for measuring energy flows. At certain sound frequencies, the lines on the floor begin to vibrate slightly, which may be related to the properties of the stone. Perhaps the Eller Ring was the heart of the entire complex, a place where humans interacted with the invisible forces of nature. Another interesting fact is that the Alara Cave complex is connected to the surface by narrow vertical shafts. These shafts are perfectly smooth, as if carved with a single tool. Air enters through them, creating a natural ventilation system. But in some places, the shafts create unique sound effects. The wind passing through them causes a low-frequency hum that amplified in adjacent chambers. Legends say this hum was considered the voice of ancestors, and priests listened to it to find answers to their questions. Perhaps the ancient inhabitants used these sound phenomena for rituals related to weather prediction, observing nature, or connecting with the earth. There is also a theory that the Eller vaults served not only as a temple, but also as a school. Numerous niches located at various levels of the complex could have served as storage spaces for knowledge or tools. Some niches bear traces of installed objects. Perhaps these were stone or wooden structures used in rituals. However, no objects have survived, making reconstructing the function of these niches virtually impossible. Local legends say that the cave vaults of Eller were the creation of masters of light and sound, a mysterious people who could manipulate stone so that it became alive. According to legend, in the vaults of Eller, a person could see not only the reflection of their face, but also the reflection of their destiny. These legends echo the unusual light and sound effects that continue to amaze researchers to this day. Today, the Eller cave vaults are considered one of the greatest monuments of ancient engineering. The complex combines architectural precision, acoustic mastery, and a profound understanding of light and space. Science continues to explore its secrets, but much remains unclear. Perhaps Eller will continue to hold its enduring mysteries, a reminder that the ancient world was far more complex and multi-layered than we have come to believe. Underground resonators of Madra. The Madra resonators are one of the most enigmatic archaeological phenomena associated with ancient subterranean structures, the origin and purpose of which remain the subject of intense debate. This complex is located beneath a dense mountain massif where natural cavities were apparently carefully transformed by ancient craftsmen. At first glance, the resonators resemble ordinary caves, but after just a few minutes inside, it becomes clear. The space was created not by nature, but by the hands of people with a deep understanding of acoustics, vibration, and the properties of stone. The resonator's main feature is their shape. Each hall, chamber, and corridor possesses a unique geometry, yet the entire complex follows a common logic. Some rooms are shaped like elongated domes, others resemble spheres cut in half, and still others resemble regular polyhedrons. But in any case, the shape of the chambers perfectly matches their acoustic properties. If you make a sound in the center of one of these chambers, it is amplified many times over, creating vibrations that can be felt on the skin. In another chamber, located just a few meters away, the sound disappears completely, as if absorbed by invisible structures within the stone. These effects cannot be random. Researchers have discovered that the walls of each chamber have their own microstructure. Subtle grooves, positioned at various angles, are visible on the stone surface. These grooves form a network of lines resembling waves or currents. Acoustic studies reveal that they direct sound, creating resonance or absorption. Thus, each chamber represents an instrument tuned to a specific frequency. Perhaps ancient craftsmen created these resonators to study vibrations or to perform rituals based on sound vibrations. Of particular interest is the central hall of the complex, dubbed the heart chamber by researchers. It is shaped like a perfectly smooth sphere, approximately 20 meters in diameter. The walls are so smooth that they reflect light like a mirror. When a voice or blow is heard in the chamber, vibrations spread throughout the circular space, returning repeatedly. If you stand at a certain point in the hall, you can hear a low-frequency hum that accompanies any movement of air. Some researchers describe a sensation as if the hall itself is alive, responding to the presence of people. But the main mystery is the behavior of light. When illuminated by a torch or lantern, tiny arcing gleams appear across the surface of the walls. They resemble shimmering waves that follow the movement of the light source. Scientists attribute this effect to the properties of the stone, which contains minerals with reflective properties. However, the question arises, were these properties natural, or did the craftsman deliberately select a rock with the desired characteristics? Perhaps the reflective properties played an important role in the rituals performed in the resonators. A key part of the complex are the narrow corridors connecting the large chambers. These corridors are unusual in that their walls are slanted. The left and right sides taper slightly toward the ceiling, creating a tunnel-like effect. But what's most intriguing is that each corridor has its own unique acoustics. In one, sound is multiplied, creating a multi-layered echo, while in another, it is almost completely absorbed. This suggests that the corridors were part of a larger system that channeled vibrations between the chambers. Some researchers believe that Madra resonators were used for sound healing. Ancient peoples may have understood the effects of vibrations on the human body and created chambers designed to achieve a specific state of consciousness. People may have entered such chambers to clear their minds, cure illnesses, or gain a vision. This is supported by evidence of the cult practices of other ancient civilizations, which used sound as a means of communicating with deities or the forces of nature. But there's another theory. The Madra resonators were part of a massive instrument that interacted with the Earth's vibrations. In some chambers, researchers recorded weak vibrations unrelated to human activity. These vibrations could have been caused by groundwater movement, tectonic processes, or natural resonances. Perhaps the ancient masters were aware of these phenomena and designed the chambers to amplify or channel natural vibrations. In this case, the complex served as a kind of underground observatory where processes occurring deep within the earth were studied. One of the most striking elements of the complex is the so-called whispering corridor. It's a narrow passage about 30 meters long where sound propagates completely differently than expected. If you whisper at one end of the corridor, your words are heard at the other end as clearly as if you were standing right next to them. However, any loud word disappears without a trace. This phenomenon is explained by the complex interaction between the shape of the corridor and the structure of the walls. But the question remains, why did the ancient masters create such an effect? Perhaps the whispering corridor was used for secret rituals or the transmission of information. At the center of the complex lies another enigma, the voice stone. This enormous monolith sits on a platform slightly elevated above the floor. When struck, the stone produces a sound resembling a prolonged ringing. This sound spreads throughout the complex, causing other stones to vibrate. This interaction suggests that the complex functioned as a unified system, with each element interconnected. Perhaps the platform served to initiate a sound-based ritual. No less intriguing is the phenomenon of vibrational waves. In some chambers, especially on the lower levels, a strange phenomenon can be observed. If you step on certain parts of the floor, vibrations spread in a circle, as if enlivening the space. This may be due to the structural features of the floor, which is composed of thin stone slabs laid in layers. Some of these slabs resonate when touched, creating a musical scale. Local legends claim that the Madra resonators were created by earth-hearing people. They were able to detect vibrations inaudible to normal hearing and communicate with the depths. Legends say that on certain days of the year, the resonators would fill with a sound resembling the rumble of a distant storm, even though silence reigned on the surface. This is reminiscent of modern observations of acoustic anomalies occurring in resonators. The underground resonators of Madra remain a unique monument of ancient architecture, where sound, form, and the energy of the earth are united into a single system. Their study continues, but much remains unclear. Perhaps this complex was a temple of vibration, a school for ancient masters, or an instrument created for communicating with the depths. But in any case, the resonators of Madra serve as a reminder that the ancient world possessed knowledge that we are only beginning to understand. Stone terraces of Orontes. The Orontes stone terraces represent one of the most extensive and incomprehensible monuments of ancient engineering. Situated on the slopes of a wide mountain valley, the natural topography allowed for the creation of a multi-level system of platforms connected by stairs, passages, and inclined planes. At first glance, the terraces appear to be ordinary agricultural structures designed for growing crops in difficult-to-reach areas. However, upon closer examination, it becomes clear their purpose was far more complex, and the level of precision and stonework surpasses anything known about ancient agricultural systems. The main terrace, the largest and most level, is located at the mid-height of the massif. It is a platform over 100 meters long and about 30 meters wide. Its surface is perfectly leveled, and its edges are crafted with mathematical precision. At first glance, the platform appears to be constructed from individual blocks, but analysis reveals that it was carved from a monolith. This suggests that ancient craftsmen possessed a stone-working technique that allowed them to remove massive layers of rock without destroying the integrity of the surface. The platform's surface is covered with fine lines that form a complex network, reminiscent of a diagram or map. These lines may have served as landmarks or were part of ritual symbolism. Of particular interest are the step terraces located above. Each has its own system of channels carved into the stone. These channels are perfectly level and always angled, ensuring the circulation of water or air. Some researchers speculate that the terraces were used for rituals associated with water, which ancient peoples considered a key element of the world. It's possible that the water flowing through the channels served not only a practical purpose, but also a sound effect, filling the complex with a melodic murmur. However, the terrace's purpose is not limited to water rituals. Their placement strictly corresponds to the path of sunlight during different periods of the year. On the equinoxes, the sun's rays fall on the terraces at a perfect angle, creating geometric shadows converging on a point located on the central platform. This phenomenon is known as the convergence of light and likely had ritual significance. Perhaps ancient craftsmen used the shadows as a means of observing the sun's movements, turning the terraces into a giant solar calendar. An important part of the complex is a system of underground chambers connected to the terraces. These chambers are rectangular or polygonal in shape and located on different levels. Some are connected by narrow vertical shafts through which air enters, creating natural ventilation. Traces of polishing, reminiscent of polishing, were found on the walls of the underground chambers. The chambers may have been used as storage areas, laboratories, or sanctuaries. In one of the chambers, researchers discovered a depression resembling an altar. Around it were traces of small stones arranged in a circle. This may indicate rituals associated with the earth or spirits. But the most enigmatic element of the terraces are the stone slabs located on the upper levels. These slabs have an unusual shape. One side is slightly convex, the other concave. When struck, they produce a sound reminiscent of a bell. In some places, the slabs are arranged as if forming a musical instrument. Perhaps ancient craftsmen used them to manipulate sound, creating melodies or vibrations. This phenomenon is enhanced by the presence of hollow spaces beneath the slabs. These serve as resonators, amplifying the sound. Legends say that in ancient times, ceremonies were held on the terraces, during which priests made the stones sing. There is also a scientific theory that the Orontes stone terraces served as a massive system for observing natural processes. Some channels on the terraces are connected to underground water sources. Perhaps ancient craftsmen studied changes in groundwater levels using the terraces for observation. If the channels filled or dried up, this could indicate seasonal changes. Thus, the terraces could have served as a scientific center for observing nature. What's also interesting is that the terraces are located in an area where several types of rock meet. Ancient craftsmen clearly selected sites with specific geology. The stone used to create the terraces is highly durable and low in porosity, making it ideal for monumental structures. Perhaps the choice of rock was not only for practical, but also ritual reasons. Some people considered hard stone a symbol of eternity or spiritual power. In this case, the terraces may have been part of ritual architecture associated with earth worship. Legends associated with the Orontes terraces tell of a people who learned from the stone. According to legend, at certain times of the year, the terraces would glow in the moonlight, and residents considered this a sign of blessing. Some researchers have indeed detected a faint glow on the stone surface, caused by the presence of minerals. This glow is minimal, but can be noticeable in dark conditions. It's possible that the ancient inhabitants used such effects as part of a ritualistic practice. Equally interesting is the fact that the terraces are connected to a system of rock tunnels leading toward the valley. These tunnels have smooth walls and an unusual shape. They resemble pipes, but were not used to transport water. They may have been used as air ducts. Some of them have been recorded emitting low-frequency vibrations, which could have served as tools for rituals or teaching. Legends say that the voice of the earth could be heard through these tunnels. This fits with the concept that the terraces were part of a system of interaction with nature. The Orontes stone terraces remain among the most enigmatic ancient structures where architecture, science, ritual, and nature are combined into a single ensemble. Their precision, scale, and complexity indicate an advanced culture with a profound understanding of geometry, acoustics, astronomy, and the Earth's energy. The terraces may have served simultaneously as a sacred space, a scientific center, and a place of power. But their true purpose remains unknown, and each new discovery only raises new questions. Lost Altars of Nax. The Lost Altars of Naxa are one of the most mysterious cult complexes of antiquity, hidden deep in the rolling hills where stone plateaus are covered with dense vegetation. The first explorers to stumble upon it by chance discovered strange stone protrusions barely protruding from the ground, but upon clearing the area, it was discovered that beneath the soil lay a vast system of altars carved into the monolith. These altars form a multi-level complex in which each element is connected to the next through a network of invisible lines, as if the entire structure were a gigantic stone mechanism, operating according to its own ancient laws. The main characteristic of the altars is their shape. Each altar has its own strictly defined geometry, round, oval, polygonal, sometimes resembling an open spiral. They are located at different levels and connected by steps or inclined planes. But the most astonishing thing is the altar's surface. It reveals fine lines intersecting at complex angles, as if ancient masters were drawing a kind of map or diagram. These lines are so fine and precise that even modern instruments struggle to reproduce such precision. Perhaps the lines served as part of a ritual code or were used to determine the direction of energy flowing through the altar. Some altars have been found with bowl-like depressions. They are arranged in a precise circle or form a spiral. A deep recess, as if intended to collect liquid, is often found in the center of such altars. However, no traces of organic matter or burnt substances have been found. This rules out most possibilities of ritual offerings. It's more likely that the depressions were used to work with light or sound. When filled with water, the surface reflects light, creating complex distortions resembling symbols or signs. Perhaps ancient artisans used these reflections as a way to communicate with nature or as a means of receiving visions. The complex's position relative to sunlight is also intriguing. The altars are oriented so that on certain days of the year, sunlight strikes the central recesses at ideal angles. This creates a radiant effect. The central parts of the altars glow, their surfaces shimmering. This glow was of particular interest to the priests conducting rituals. Perhaps it was at these moments that the altar was believed to awaken and become a mediator between man and heaven. But light wasn't the only factor at the Naxa complex. The acoustics of the altars are no less impressive. If you stand in a certain spot and make a sound, it reverberates off the walls, making it seem as if the voice is emanating from the ground. In some areas, the sound is amplified many times over, creating vibrations that are felt by the body. This suggests that ancient craftsmen exploited the resonant properties of stone. Perhaps the rituals included chanting, where the priest's voice harmonized with the vibrations of the altar. The altars located in the western part of the complex are particularly noteworthy. These altars have an unusual structure. Their surface is covered with numerous indentations reminiscent of tool marks. However, these marks form a precise pattern repeated in other megalithic complexes in the region. This may have been a symbolic system reflecting the ancient people's beliefs about the cycles of nature and the connection between man and the earth. A deep crack was discovered in one of these altars, which turns out to be not natural damage, but a carefully crafted structural element. Through this crack, air enters the underground chambers, creating a quiet hum that enhances the sense of sacredness. An equally intriguing part of the complex are the underground chambers associated with the altars. These chambers are located beneath the main level and have unusual shapes. Some are round, others polygonal, but all possess perfect symmetry. Signs, short lines, dots, and triangles are visible on their walls. They are arranged at uniform heights, suggesting some kind of system. These may be directional signs or parts of a ritual script. However, the language remains undecipherable. Some researchers believe the underground chambers served as training grounds for priests, where they performed purification rituals or learned to interact with stone. The so-called altar of breathing deserves special attention. This is the central structure of the complex, a circular platform surrounded by deep channels. Wind passes through these channels, creating a low-frequency hum. When positioned correctly in the center of the platform, the hum intensifies, and it seems as if the earth itself is breathing. Perhaps the ancient inhabitants believed that through this altar one could sense the presence of spirits or hear the voices of ancestors. Such beliefs are common to many ancient cultures, but here they are embodied in a unique architectural form. No less mysterious are the stone columns located around some of the altars. These columns are more than just supports. They have an unusual structure. Spiral lines are visible on their surface, which appear to amplify vibrations. When struck, a column produces a low ringing sound that spreads throughout the complex. This may indicate that the columns were part of a system of sound-nature interaction. Perhaps rituals were performed so that the sound would produce a specific frequency that resonated with the earth. Interestingly, the Naxa complex is located in a zone where underground waters intersect. Perhaps ancient craftsmen used this knowledge to create altars that interacted with nature. If water flowed beneath the altars, it could have amplified vibrations or influenced the acoustic properties of the structures. This could also explain the presence of tubular openings located beneath some altars. Air passes through them, creating acoustic effects. Legends associated with Naxos tell of priests who could read the light and listen to the earth. According to legend, on certain days of the year, light passing through the altars formed signs that foretold the future. These legends echo the drawings found on the altar's surfaces. Perhaps the ancient masters truly did use light as a tool for obtaining information. The lost altars of Naxa are a complex where light, sound, form, and earth energy interact. The multi-level structure, the precision of the stonework, and the multitude of symbols all speak of a highly developed culture whose knowledge and methods remain a mystery. Perhaps the altars served as ancient observatories, temples, schools, or places of initiation. But whatever their true function, they remain impressive evidence that ancient humans were able to interact with the world at a level comparable to modern scientific knowledge. Lajar Rock Chambers. The Lajar Rock Chambers are one of the most mysterious and poorly studied complexes of underground architecture, scattered across the rock masses of an ancient ridge. At first glance, these chambers may appear to be ordinary natural cavities. But upon closer examination, it becomes clear their origin cannot be explained by natural processes. Each hall, each corridor, each niche is so precisely shaped that it seems as if the stone here was fashioned by a master skilled in unknown rock-cutting techniques. The chambers are located on different levels, connected by vertical shafts and narrow passages, forming an entire system hidden in the depths of the cliff. The main feature of the Lajar chambers is their shape. Some chambers have rounded vaults, reminiscent of the interiors of enormous vessels. Others have strict polygonal outlines, with edges so perfectly smooth that it's hard to believe they were crafted by hand without the aid of modern tools. But the most astonishing thing is the surface of the walls. It appears smooth, almost polished, and under the light of a torch, fine lines are visible, forming patterns or diagrams. These lines are not decorative. Most likely, they serve to convey information or indicate the direction of natural forces flowing through the stone. Some chambers have unusual acoustics. At one point, the sound intensifies, and at another, it disappears completely. It seems the chambers were designed as resonant instruments. Perhaps ancient masters used them to study sound vibrations or to conduct rituals in which sound played a key role. In some chambers, holes were found at uniform heights. Air passes through them, creating low-frequency vibrations that fill the space with a barely perceptible hum. These vibrations intensify at night, when the air temperature drops. Perhaps the hum was considered the voice of the earth or was used to create the desired atmosphere during rituals. However, no less of a mystery are the vertical shafts connecting the upper and lower levels. These shafts are perfectly smooth, their walls crafted as if a tool had cut through the stone with incredible precision. At some levels, the shafts widen, forming small platforms. These platforms may have served as observation points or resting places. Some researchers speculate that ancient craftsmen may have used the shafts to conduct experiments involving the movement of air, light, or even energy. The lower levels of the complex contain chambers with significantly lower temperatures than the others. These chambers are round, and their walls are coated with a layer of minerals that reflect light in an unusual way. When a torch burns in such a chamber, it seems as if the walls are glowing from within. Perhaps the ancients used highly reflective minerals to create a special atmosphere. Some legends suggest that purification or initiation rituals were performed in these chambers. The so-called Chamber of Silence is also of interest. It's a room where sound completely disappears. Even footsteps become barely audible. Scientists speculate that the chamber's shape ensures complete absorption of sound waves. It may have been used for meditation or rituals requiring complete concentration. However, legends claim that it was here that priests could hear the voices of spirits that were not present in ordinary spaces. At the opposite end of the complex is an echo chamber, where sound is reflected back and forth, creating the effect of multiple voices. This room has a complex geometry. The walls curve in such a way as to create ideal conditions for sound reflection. It's possible that rituals involving collective singing or invocations to the forces of nature were held here. The symbols painted on the walls of some chambers are particularly striking. They are combinations of dots, lines, and simple shapes. Their arrangement is strictly ordered. The symbols are repeated at regular intervals and sometimes form chains resembling a code. This may have been a system for recording knowledge or instructions intended for those passing through the chambers. However, not a single symbol has been deciphered. This may indicate that the symbolic language was known only to initiates. Some researchers believe the Lajar chambers were used as an ancient school of learning. The vertical shafts may have been used to teach how to work with heights and space. The acoustic chambers were used to study sound. The light chambers were used to understand optical phenomena. All of this points to the existence of a developed culture in which stone served not just as a building material, but also as a means of transmitting knowledge. Legends associated with Lajar speak of a people who lived within the stone and were able to create spaces without a single mistake. According to their stories, the stone chambers were places where initiations took place. Each student had to traverse the entire complex, overcoming darkness, silence, vibrations, and light. Only those who reached the final chamber became masters. These legends echo the complex's architecture. It seems the chambers were truly created to test a person. At the center of the complex lies the most enigmatic chamber, the heart chamber. It is shaped like a perfect sphere, and its walls are so smooth that they reflect any light like a mirror. If you stand in the center and make a sound, it amplifies, as if emanating not only from the person but also from the stone itself. Some researchers believe this chamber was the central element of the entire complex. Perhaps crucial rituals involving the interaction between man and the earth were performed here. The chamber leaves a profound impression. Anyone who enters it feels a strange sense of pressure or presence. The Lajar rock chambers remain among the most enigmatic ancient structures where sound, light, and geometry interact. Their structure suggests a high level of knowledge, and legends suggest a deep connection with the spiritual world. Perhaps the chambers served as a school, a temple, or a place of power. But while their mystery remains unsolved, they continue to inspire researchers and preserve the memory of an ancient culture that vanished without a trace. The hidden labyrinths, niches, vaults, and terraces of this world reveal that ancient masters knew how to transform stone as if it obeyed the earth's inner rhythm. Their structures became mirrors of invisible forces, where sound, light, and form merged into a single code. Exploring these places, we sense the breath of forgotten civilizations that left us not answers, but a path to new mysteries.